Once again, a very pleasant good morning, everybody. Honorable Dennis Cornwall, Minister for Finance. Mrs. Marion Ginis, have it right? Good. Head of Procurement, Head of Projects or EGQs and GIZ. Mr. Mike Sylvester, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance. Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance Administration. Ms. Francis, good morning. Other permanent secretaries, directors, department heads, members of the Procurement Board, special invited guests, our value stakeholders, contractors, consultants, public workers, project managers, goods suppliers, members of the media, good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the 2026 GIZ GQ's Central Procurement Unit Symposium under the theme Smart Bidding, Stronger Partnerships. Now, before we get started, I know procurement isn't a topic people describe as exciting over breakfast, but I promise you, by the end of today, you will realize that procurement is much more than paperwork and processes. It's about opportunities, it's about partnerships, it's about innovation, and ultimately, how we deliver better outcomes for the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. We are delighted that you have chosen to spend the next 2 days with us as we explore ways to strengthen our procurement ecosystem and to build stronger partnerships between government and the private sector. So once again, welcome, and I also acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Lennox Andrews, who has just joined us. Thank you, Minister. As with all things of significance and even not so significant, we begin by seeking God's guidance and blessings upon our deliberations. I now invite Bishop Paul Alexander to lead us in the opening prayer, and that would be followed immediately by our national anthem. Bishop Alexander.
Thank you so very much, Master of Ceremonies. Can I invite you to stand with me at this time? And of course, a very pleasant morning to all. Father, we honor you. We glorify you. We magnify your name. Your word admonishes us that, Lord, we should trust in you with all of our hearts and lean not unto our own understanding. You said in all of our ways acknowledge you, and you shall direct our path. We thank you, God, that we can acknowledge you at this moment, even, Lord, as this symposium is about to commence. We commit everything into your hands, dear Father. You are the God of all wisdom. You are the God of knowledge. You are the God that have given men gifts and abilities and talents, dear Father. In fact, your word declares that every good and every perfect gift comes from you. And so, Father, we commit all of the presenters that are going to present today. We pray, Father, that God, whatever is going to be said, whatever is going to be done, Lord, is going to empower, Lord, each and every person, regardless, Lord, of where they function. We pray for business places. We pray for the contractors. We pray for, Lord God, members, Lord, of government. And Father, we ask that you would take full charge and control of today's event. We pray that, God, at the end of it all, lives would be challenged, lives would be informed. Oh God, lives, dear Father, would be empowered to function in excellence. And that God Almighty, Father, we are going to see Grenada advance as a people. We ask it in no other name, but in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And we thank you. Amen. Remain standing.
And you may have your seat. Thank you so much, Bishop Alexander, for invoking God's presence and so skillfully leading the national anthem of Grenada. I want to also recognize Deputy Permanent Secretary within the Ministry of Finance. This is Siobhan Britton Tellisford, who also came in during the introduction, and also Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph, Attorney General, who has joined us as well. To officially welcome us this morning, it is my pleasure to invite the man who continues to lead the work of the Central Procurement Unit within the Ministry of Finance, and whose vision has shaped and helped bring this symposium to fruition. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, as we welcome Chief Procurement Officer within the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Terence Victor, to do the welcoming remarks this morning.
With protocol already established, I say welcome, and I acknowledge our distinguished guests, representatives from the private sector, contractors, consultants, and suppliers, public officers. Ladies and gentlemen, all, good morning. It is my privilege to welcome you to this Public Procurement Symposium. On behalf of the Public Procurement Board, the Central Procurement Unit, and our co-organizer, the German Agency for International Cooperation, GIZ, I extend sincere appreciation to each one of you for taking the time to join us here this morning. Today and tomorrow, we bring together the major partners in public procurement, our suppliers of goods, works, and services, and the government practitioners who manage the procurement processes. Your presence reflects a shared commitment to strengthening our procurement practices, improving transparency, and building a stronger and more effective working relationship between public institutions and private sector entities. The objectives of this symposium are clear. Firstly, to enhance the capacity of bidders in preparing and submitting effective, responsive bids that are aligned with public procurement requirements. And secondly, to engage public procurement practitioners in conducting public procurement activities in an efficient, transparent manner geared towards delivering value. We must appreciate that public procurement is not only a channel for government to deliver services and outcomes to its people, it is also a major opportunity for businesses to contribute to national development. To succeed in this environment, bidders must continuously fully understand the legislation framework, the procedures, and the expectations that govern government procurement activities. As we navigate procurement responsibilities together, we must also recognize that successful participation depends on more than just submitting documents. It requires clarity of requirements, sound interpretation of tender instructions, careful compliance, and a deliberate approach to delivering value to procuring entities and ultimately to the general public. In today's global environment, the importance of competitive bidding has become even more pronounced. Geopolitical tensions, regional conflicts, trade restrictions, and other international developments have continued to strain and disrupt global supply chains. As a result, both businesses and governments face rising costs, material shortages, delivery uncertainties, and a greater risk in planning and implementing programs. For that reason, it is essential that bids are not only competitively priced, but must also be realistic, well-planned, and responsive to the current market conditions. Procurement entities are increasingly looking for bids that demonstrate a clear understanding of the desired outcomes, including sustainability commitments, quality assurance arrangements, and fulfillment of contractual obligations. Let me emphasize that competitive bidding today goes beyond price. It reflects an assessment of value for money, reliability, innovation, risk management, and the ability to adapt and the ability to deliver sustainable results despite local and external challenges. Suppliers must therefore adapt to these changing conditions by strengthening their technical capacity in compliant systems and bid preparation skills. These will be best positioned to compete successfully and deliver effectively once contracts are awarded. Therefore, over the next 2 days, I encourage you to engage actively, share your practical experiences, ask many questions, and learn from each other. Your participation will indeed strengthen public procurement and improve the delivery of greater value for government and the people of Grenada. Thank you once again for joining us. I wish everyone a productive and rewarding symposium. Thank you.
I guess by now we understand that procurement is serious business, and it is not something that happens just as a process, but as something that is important to manage finances, manage costs. And so we want to thank Mr. Victor for your warm and inspiring words and for so elegantly putting things into perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, an effective procurement system depends not only on sound policies and procedures, but also on strong governance, oversight, and accountability. At the heart of this oversight is the Procurement Board, which plays a critical role in promoting transparency, fairness, integrity, and public confidence in the procurement process. Our next speaker is exceptionally well suited to speak on these principles. Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph is an accomplished attorney at law with more than 2 decades of legal experience. A graduate of the University of the West Indies, and if I don't say St. Joseph's Convent, St. George's, she will have my neck, and the Hugh Wooden Law School in Trinidad. She has served in several distinguished roles over her career, including in-house lawyer at the Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic, Deputy Registrar of the Supreme Court Registry, a current partner at Amcus Attorney Law Firm in St. George's, a lecturer in business law and international law at the St. George's University. In addition to her legal career, she has also been actively involved in public service and national leadership, culminating in her appointment in the Senate in 2022. Today, she serves as Attorney General and Minister for Legal Affairs, Labor, and Consumer Affairs. But in her role today, she serves as Deputy Chair of the Procurement Board, where she brings a wealth of experience and wealth of expertise and governance experience to the ongoing work of strengthening Grenada's public procurement framework and advancing the principles of transparency and accountability in public procurement. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph as she brings remarks on behalf of the Procurement Board.
All right, so let me just adjust this. Okay, I was trying so that my beautiful face is not blocked. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, for that kind introduction. It's perhaps going to be longer than what I have to say. I wish to recognize amongst us the Honorable Minister for Finance, my colleague, Honorable Dennis Cornwall, Honorable Lennox Andrews with a S, Minister for Economic Development, among other important portfolios, Mrs. Marian Scheiss, did I get it right? Okay, she said kinda. Head of the G-Cruise GIZ project here in Grenada, Mr. Mike Sylvester, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance. I see also Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ms. Siobhan Britton in the Ministry of Finance. Other permanent secretaries present, members of the Procurement Board, other directors, heads of departments, specially invited guests, our valued stakeholders. Good morning again, and a warm welcome to all of you. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to deliver these remarks on behalf of the Procurement Board. I am particularly pleased because we have been discussing for a while having an activity such as this, so it's great that it has come to fruition now. And delighted am I to observe the range of participants in attendance. It appears that we have succeeded in bringing together the entire ecosystem of Grenada's commercial and developmental landscape. And we have done so under a most fitting theme: better bids, stronger partnerships. We have builders, the thinkers, suppliers, public workers, project managers, and the private sector all gathered here today. Your presence underscores a fundamental truth. Successful procurement is not a solo effort. It is a collaborative ecosystem. We must extend our deepest gratitude to our sponsors. The Climate Resilient Water Sector in Grenada, or GCRUS, which is generally funded by the Green Climate Fund, the German government, GIZ, and the government of Grenada. Their collaboration in hosting this event is an investment that highlights how critical procurement is to building a resilient nation. Government procurement is often viewed through a lens of dense bureaucracy. And trust me, the bureaucracy is indeed dense. We know that for many small and medium-sized enterprises, and even seasoned contractors, navigating the government's tendering process can feel daunting, and sometimes not just can feel daunting, but can be daunting. This is precisely why we are pleased to host this initiative led by the Central Procurement Unit. This is precisely why we have welcomed this initiative by the unit. The government procurement is guided by the Public Procurement and Contract Administration Act. Well, I think this is a wrong citation here in the script, because it is the Public Procurement and Disposal of Property Act. It's a 2014 Act, 25 or 2014, I think. I didn't pick that up in the script before. And it is certainly in our best interest to become familiar with the provisions of this act. So it's the 2014 Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property legislation. We did not come here, however, to simply read regulations to you. Over the next 2 days, this room will transform into a hub of practical learning through expert-led sessions and hands-on coaching. We are going to break down the how-to of bid preparation. You will receive step-by-step guidance on how to interpret tender documents and, crucially, how to submit bids that are not just compatible, but fully compliant and ultimately successful. We want to address two major points head-on: high disqualification rates and avoidable submission errors. Because we don't want people to keep disqualifying themselves by making simple, avoidable errors. Indeed, it is disheartening for you to invest time and capital into a bid, and equally frustrating for the government to lose out on your expertise simply because a form was not filled out correctly or a compliance certificate was missing. While there is a genuine desire, as we say locally, to give the small man a chance, we are duty bound to operate within the framework of the legislation and its accompanying regulations. This means that incomplete submissions, insufficient proof of financial capacity, missing documents, or inadequate records will prevent progression to the next stage of evaluation. Therefore, the goal of this symposium is to build your confidence, significantly reduce disqualification rates, and raise the standard of practice in procurement. True economic growth cannot happen without transparency, fairness, and efficiency. When the system is transparent, everyone wins. And I'm tempted to say here, everybody wins. Like, when UNC wins. So everyone benefits and everyone wins when we have a fair, efficient, and transparent systems. So as I close, I want to challenge participants here to be active, curious, ask questions, be engaged. To our contractors and suppliers, use this time to build direct relationships with the auditors, the quantity surveyors, the bankers, and the insurance firms in the room. And also to build a nice rapport with the members of the Central Procurement Unit. Because sometimes when you are preparing a bid and you are unsure about something, you can reach out to the Central Procurement Unit for guidance so that you know that when you submit a bid, you would have done a proper submission. Sorry about giving you all extra work. And so these people who I have just mentioned are the gatekeepers who can help you to meet the rigorous requirements for a compliant tender. I want to extend my deepest gratitude to the Ministry of Finance, the Central Procurement Unit, and the GQ's project team for making this event a reality. I wish you all a highly productive, collaborative, and successful 2 days of hard work ahead. Thank you, and may God continue to bless us all. Have a successful and productive symposium. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Build relationship with the Central Procurement Unit. You heard that. Take note. Ladies and gentlemen, as we move on in the program, I just really want to acknowledge the strong team of hard workers that would have put this event together. So join me in putting my hands together, or put our hands together for the Central Procurement Unit within the Ministry of Finance, the Corporate Communications Unit, and the team at GIZ, GCruise, who have worked tirelessly over the past few months to ensure that this event is a success. It is now my pleasure to invite a man whose career has been marked by service, leadership, and a deep commitment to the development of Grenada. As Minister for Finance, Honorable Dennis Cornwall plays a critical role in shaping the country's fiscal policies, strengthen public financial management, and support initiatives that promote sustainable economic growth, and national development. His leadership continues to guide efforts aimed at building a resilient economy, improving public service, and creating opportunities for the people of Grenada. Given the important role that public procurement plays in achieving value for money, transparency and accountability, and effective service delivery, we are honored this morning to have him address us. Please join me as we welcome our minister, my minister, the Honorable Dennis Cornwall, Minister for Finance, to give us some brief remarks. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, everyone. Honorable Lennox Andrews, Minister for Economic Development, Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph, Deputy Chair of the Procurement Board and Minister for Legal Affairs, et al. Prominent secretaries in the audience, including Mr. Mike Sylvester and other deputy permanent secretaries, as well as other senior government officials in here. Members of the private sector entities involved in today's activity. Mrs. Marion Hess, Head of Procurement, G. Cruz. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, other public officers present in the room, ladies and gentlemen, it's both an honor and privilege to extend warm greetings to you on the occasion of this two-day symposium hosted by G. Cruz and the Central Procurement Unit. I did not mention the Procurement Board earlier on. I wish to recognize them because they have been doing a very valuable and important job for the government of Grenada and for the people of Grenada. This gathering comes at a critical time in Grenada's development journey as we continue to strengthen our systems of governance and accountability. Public procurement stands at the center of how government delivers value to its people. It is not merely a process of acquiring goods and services. It's a strategic function that shapes national development, fosters economic participation, and builds trust between the state and its citizens. The theme of this symposium, and I quote, "Smart Bidding, Stronger Partnership," end of quote, speaks directly to the direction in which we must move as a country. Smart bidding is about more than compliance. It's about preparedness, transparency, the use of modern tools to ensure that opportunities are accessible, processes are fair, and outcomes are efficient. It calls on our private sector partners to elevate their standards, strengthen their capacity, and engage government with confidence and integrity. At the same time, stronger partnership reminds us that procurement is not a one-sided transaction. It is a collaborative effort. Government must create the enabling environment, clear guidelines, timely payments, digital platforms, and open communication, while the private sector must respond with professionalism, competitiveness, and accountability. I want to go off script a little bit because most of the times when we actually ask our partners to submit or adhere to some of the things that we would want them to do to make the system efficient and more amenable to us, we get complaints or kickbacks. Like, for example, the government wants to tax us for certain things. So simple thing like provide us with your bank account or your TIN number or your personal information. It is seen as though we are trying to basically tax this person's heavier. And I'm saying here today that's not the intention of the government of Grenada. So take note. When we ask you for information, please comply because that is one of the things that will make our system more efficient. It will make our lives much easier. Too many times you get complaints from the public about, oh, the Ministry of Finance didn't do this and they didn't do that and they didn't do that. We want to see less of this and more progress as we go forward. As a government, we have already begun laying the foundation for this transformation. Through the modernization of our financial management system, including the rollout of digital platforms and the vendors portal, that's another headache I've had in recent times. We are working to simplify processes, reduce bottlenecks, and improve transparency. These platforms represent the most significant upgrade to our payment and procurement system in over 2 decades. They are designed not only to improve efficiency within government, but to make it easier for businesses, large and small, to participate in public procurement. We are also committed to ensuring that procurement becomes a vehicle for inclusive growth. This means expanding opportunities for local contractors, service providers, and entrepreneurs across Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. It means ensuring that small businesses are not left behind, but are instead equipped with the knowledge and tools to compete effectively. This symposium, therefore, is more than a meeting. It's a platform for engagement, learning, and alignment. Over the next 2 days, I encourage you to ask questions, share experience, and challenge existing practices where necessary. Let us use this opportunity to bridge gaps in understanding, strengthen collaboration, and build a procurement system that is responsive and resilient and result-driven. To our development partners, including those who continue to support capacity building within our procurement system, we express sincere appreciation. Your partnership is invaluable as we work to align our practice with international standards while remaining grounded in our local realities. To the team at the Central Procurement Unit, I commend you, your dedication and leadership in advancing procurement reform in Grenada. Your efforts are critical to ensuring that public resources are managed within the highest level of integrity and efficiency. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of procurement in Grenada must be defined by transparency, innovation, and partnership. If we get this right, we do more than improve systems. We strengthen confidence in government, we stimulate economic activity, and we create opportunities for our people. Let us move forward together, committed to building a procurement environment where smart bidding becomes the standard and strong partnership becomes the norm. I thank you, and I wish you a productive, impactful symposium.
This symposium is more than a meeting. It's a platform for learning and development. Words of our minister, and words that should guide us over the next 2 days. Ladies and gentlemen, this symposium has seen a lot of work, a lot of effort put into it, because we understand the importance, and we also understand that if we have to bridge the gap, if we have to create the linkages, if we have to create the relationship, we must first bring you to a place of understanding. We must give you the skills, we must give you the know-how and the knowledge. And that is why your presence here this morning is so very much critical as we move forward. To tie in all that was said this morning, and to give you a little bit more clarity on why today is so significant, we are now going to hear our keynote address this morning. And our keynote speaker is a distinguished economist, educator, public servant, and now parliamentarian, whose career has been dedicated to the advancing of economic development, strategic planning, and national and regional progress. Honorable Lennox Andrews has served with distinction in the Ministry of Finance, so welcome home, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, academia, and now in the cabinet. Throughout his career, he has been recognized for his ability to connect policies, economics, and development in a way that are practical, people-centered, and impactful. Today, as Minister for Economic Development, Planning, Agriculture, Lands, Forestry, Marine Resources and Cooperatives, and now the Blue Economy, he continues to play a pivotal role in shaping Grenada's development agenda and advancing initiatives that promote sustainable growth and opportunities. Given that the theme for this symposium is smarter or stronger bidding, stronger partnerships, there couldn't be a more fitting person to deliver our keynote address this morning other than the Honorable Lennox Andrews. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome Minister Lennox Andrews to deliver our keynote address.
Oh, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Sampson. And I recall you were my very good student of economics in my early years of academic exploits. But I want to begin by recognizing in our midst Honorable Dennis Cornwall. Many people call me Cornwall. Yesterday they saw me and she said, Mr. Cornwall. And I had to say to her, yes, me and Mr. Cornwall had a very long, many years of working together. We are good colleagues. I accept that we have grown to look like each other. So we are one and the same. I also wish to recognize our Honorable Claudette Joseph, the Deputy Chair of the Public Procurement Board and the Minister for Labor and Legal Affairs, and Mrs. Marion Gis, and I hope I get your name right, the head of Project GIZ, our dear Permanent Secretary, Mike Sylvester, in the Ministry of Finance. You know, Mike was my Permanent Secretary. He was my assistant at one time in the Ministry of Finance. He's a good boy. He's a very good boy. He's a very good boy. And I also see Mrs. Siobhan Britton Telesford. Yeah. Whenever I see her, I remember her father, because her father took good care of me. So when she called me and she said to me, come here today, I said, I must come. And I'm supposed to be elsewhere now, but I have to be here. So Ms. Siobhan is a good girl. A very good girl. I see other permanent secretaries, directors, and departments of heads, members of the procurement board, invited guests, and our various stakeholders, contractors, consultants, public workers, project managers, good suppliers, and members of the media. So thank you all very much indeed for this opportunity to be the keynote speaker for the 2026 Procurement Symposium. You know, as I look at this room here this morning, and I get a special vibes. And I feel good because I get a sense that we are finally addressing a national issue that has been slowing down our country's development. So if I am to say the truth, this gathering here this morning is the engine room for our country's national development. It is here where things happen. It is here where things in the country are made to happen. So much so that when nothing happens here, nothing happens in the country. And herein lies the importance of this meeting and the importance of each and every one of you gathered here this morning. And so I want to commend the Ministry of Finance Central Procurement Unit for executing this activity. I also want to express profound gratitude to our sponsors, the Climate Resilient Water Sector in Grenada G-Cruise project, funded by the Green Climate Fund and the German government. The government of Grenada knows firsthand that executing climate resilient infrastructure requires an agile, highly competent, and transparent procurement network. So the theme for this morning, better bids, stronger partnership, is indeed most appropriate. So let us start by conceptualizing why we are here today. There is indeed macroeconomic power in procurement. I accept that government procurement is an administrative function of the state, and undoubtedly one of the most powerful economic levers available to our sovereign nation. Every single year, this government injects millions of dollars into the economy through the purchase of goods, services, and the implementation of major infrastructure works. Historically, public procurement was viewed simply as a mechanism for the state to spend money. That old paradigm is dead. Today, our administration views public procurement as a strategic instrument for transformation, economic expansion, job generation, and domestic capacity building. When the government spends $1 of public goods, that dollar must do double duty. It must deliver high-quality infrastructure, and simultaneously, it must also act as a catalyst that strengthens local entrepreneurs, create sustainable employment, and ensures that wealth circulates right here within our 3 island states. And herein lies the importance of taking timely decisions where procurement is concerned. And I want to say this. When we delay procurement decisions, we delay implementation of projects. And when we delay implementation of projects, we delay addressing the needs of the people. And when we delay addressing the needs of our people, we delay improving their lives and raising their living standards. And in the end, poverty abounds as our people continue to be poor. So we have to move fast, objectively, and take those decisions quickly. Because every time we slow that down, we're slowing down the process of our country's development. But to fully unleash the power of this economic lever, we must be honest about the challenges of the past. For too long, there has been a disconnect between the government's desire to support local businesses and the practical realities of the tendering and project execution process. We know the frustrations you have faced. Many of our small to medium-sized contractors, consultants, and businesses have felt locked out of the process. But I want to say to you, that may have a bearing on your own doing. And I want to give the example, the real example, that I experienced many years ago in the early 90s or in the late 90s, when the government was doing a project called the Carrico Multi-Project, $16.5 million. And I recall Finance asking 3 local engineering firms to join as one, to bid for the project. Because one condition was that the initial mobilization had to be borne by the winning contractor. Individually, they weren't able to do so, and they didn't join. And the project went to a firm called Edghill and Associates of Barbados, for the simple reason that Edghill was able to do the initial mobilization without any financing from the CDB. And I will talk a little bit more about that down the road. Many of the larger firms may have the technical skills but lack the administrative capacity, and so you lose out to firms which have larger admin departments dedicated solely to winning bids and to writing bids. So let me say this. We are not here to lower our standards. Grenada deserves world-class quality. And so we are here to lift you up to meet local, regional, and international standards. True partnership, true stronger partnership require that we give you the tools to create better bids. True transformation requires that we build our people as much as we build our systems and our economy. And so I want to share with you the core pillars of our vision. The strategic goals of this symposium align perfectly with our broader national development strategy. First, human development and long-term progress. A transparent procurement ecosystem is the ultimate equalizer. When rules are clear, accessible, understood by all, it ensures that the well-connected firm, from Belize to the brilliant young startup from St. Andrew or Carrico, stand on the exact same footing. Second, fiscal responsibility and value for money. By demystifying the tendering process and reducing disqualification rates, we naturally increase the pool of eligible, high-quality bidders. More competition yields better innovation, superior project execution, and maximum value for every taxpayer dollar spent. Third, climate resilience and future-proofing. Partnering with the G-Cruise project reminds us that what we build today must withstand the climate realities of tomorrow. To build a resilient Grenada, we need contractors and suppliers who understand modern, sustainable compliance framework. 5, and mobilizing the ecosystem. I am indeed energized to see that this symposium has deliberately brought together a complete ecosystem. So here we have our critical financial gatekeepers. We have auditors, quantity surveyors, commercial banks, and of course, insurance executives. Now, to our friends in the banking and insurance sector, and I want to say to you, in September, we're going to have a symposium. The Ministry of Finance is going to have a symposium on the role of the financial sector in economic development. And we will send invitation out to all of you, and we expect you to be present here. So I'm giving you an early notice if you don't mind. But to you, our friends in the banking and insurance sectors, I want to say to you that you are a critical pillar in this economic development strategy. Because when a local contractor successfully navigates the tendering process using the skills learned, he will need performance bond, advance payment guarantees, and working capital credit lines. So I kindly ask of you to match the government commitment, partner with these businesses, create agile financial products that bridge the gap between winning a government contract and executing it successfully. So as I conclude, to you, the participants, the next 2 days represent an investment, a big investment in you. I reckon after these 2 days, we will see a much faster implementation of projects in the country. So I ask of you to approach these sessions as a strategic masterclass for your company's growth. Absorb the knowledge. Challenge the facilitators from the Central Procurement Unit, and they are good. As Elias Smith here, he's a facilitator. He's a bright boy from Grenville. He's my neighbor. And I see Terence here too. Terence is well trained. He spent a long time at the World Bank being trained in procurement. You almost know those things. You ought to know those things because sometimes when we see them, people who come and talk to us, we in Grenada, we don't speak about ourselves. We're very humble. We don't speak about ourselves. But sometimes it's good to speak about ourselves because in so doing, we may just encourage somebody to do better. Yeah? So Terence is well trained. Terence is well equipped. I see Terence down as a facilitator. Make good use of Terence and be a friend. Be a friend of Terence. You make things happen. Engage in the simulations with absolute focus. And as I've just said, very importantly, network with each other. Look for opportunities to form joint ventures because sometimes, two small firms working together can successfully bid for a mega project that neither could handle alone. And I gave you the example of the Carrico multi-project. When I asked 3 small firms, I asked them from where I sit, 3 small firms to join together and bid for the project, and then do it, and they lose the project. So that networking, that joining together is extremely important. So ladies and gentlemen, when your business grows, Grenada economy strives. I want to highly commend the Ministry of Finance Central Procurement Unit and our international partners at GCRUISE, the Green Climate Fund, and the German government for the vision. Let us use these 2 days to build better bids, forge stronger partnerships, and secure a prosperous, resilient future for all Grenada and for all Grenadians. Thank you very much indeed, and do have an incredible productive symposium.
I sat there looking at my former lecturer deliver the keynote address, and I remember something. One day after class, he pulled me aside and he said to me, son, you're a good student, you know. You're a good student. But boy, you just talk too much. Minister, I'm now in PR and communication. Am I still talking too much, or am I a good boy? It's always good to reflect on these moments. We have to move fast, and move fast objectively. For when you move slow, we slow down our country's development. Strong words. He said that this room is the engine room for national development. And then he emphasized and stressed that we should seek opportunities to come together, to partner together, to take on those bigger contracts. And you know, I was looking at a clip this morning where one of our contractors were talking about foreigners, the foreigners. And I sat and I thought about the same thing, that we have the opportunities, we have the skill sets right here in Grenada, if we can come together. And that's why a part of today's activity, later on today, we will have a networking session. And the opportunity is there. We also have 2 boards. As you come in, you would have seen them on either side of the corridor. We're saying to you, your business cards, stick it on that board, so that somebody in the room who is looking for a skill set that you may not know exists right here in this room, you can see it. Yeah? So, thank you, Minister, for your thoughtful and thought-provoking address. Your remarks have challenged us to think beyond just compliance and to see procurement as a strategic tool for national development, innovation, and of course, stronger partnership. We continue the program, and we are coming to the end of the official ceremony part of today. As we're going on to get into the technical work, we recognize the departure of the Honorable Minister, Carter Joseph, who had to leave us. We thank her so much for coming and being a part. I want to invite my colleague as we conclude this morning's opening ceremony. It's only fitting that we acknowledge those whose effort has made today's events possible. So join with me and welcome my colleague from the Central Procurement Unit, Mr. Axel Joseph, who will come and deliver this morning's vote of thanks.
Good morning, everyone. With protocol already established, I want to say, as we commence this insightful and engaging procurement symposium, it is my great honor and privilege to offer the opening acknowledgements on behalf of the organizing committee and our valued partners, GIZ, Marion and Janelle and team, whose dedicated collaboration and support have helped make this event possible for all you guys here today. First and foremost, I wish to express our sincere gratitude to our Minister, Dennis Conwall, the Honorable Dennis Conwall, PS Mike Sylvester, Deputy PS Siobhan Britton Telesford, Honorable Lennox Andrews, Minister for Economic Development, and as we made mention earlier, Senator Honorable Claudette Joseph, Deputy Chair of the Public Procurement Board, for taking the time for joining us here today and for their continued support of initiatives that strengthen governance, accountability, and public service procurement. Your presence underscores the importance that our nation's leadership places on sound procurement practices and institutional development. I would also like to thank and acknowledge our ministers, permanent secretaries, senior government officials, heads of departments, developmental partners, and stakeholders who have honored us here with their presence today. Your participation reflects a shared commitment to advancing procurement as a strategic function that contributes directly to national development. To our keynote speakers, presenters, panelists, I extend my sincere appreciation in advance for sharing your expertise, experiences, and perspectives. The knowledge and practical insights you will provide us today will challenge us to think differently, embrace innovation, and continuously improve the way we deliver procurement outcomes. To all participants, thank you for joining us as well. Your engagement, contributions, and willingness to exchange ideas will be instrumental in making today's discussion meaningful and productive. We are equally grateful to our developmental partners and supporting organizations whose collaborations continue to strengthen procurement capacity and promote international best practices. Your partnership remains invaluable in helping us build more transparent, efficient, and resilient procurement systems. A special word of appreciation is also extended to the organizing committee, moderators, technical support teams, administrative staff, and volunteers who have worked diligently behind the scenes to ensure the successful execution of this symposium. Your hard work and dedication are deeply appreciated. As we begin today's proceedings, let us take full advantage of this opportunity to learn, share experiences, and strengthen the networks that support procurement excellence. Procurement is more than just a process. It is a strategic tool for achieving value for money, fostering public trust, and delivering sustainable development outcomes for the people that we serve. On behalf of the organizers, I thank you all for your presence and participation, and I wish everyone a productive and engaging, rewarding symposium. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us show our appreciation once again to all of our speakers and distinguished guests this morning. And before we transition into our first technical session, it would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the organizations whose generous support have helped make this symposium possible. On behalf of the management team, the Corporate Communications Unit, the Central Procurement Unit of the Ministry of Finance, we extend our sincere gratitude to GIZ and GCRUIS, the GCRUIS project, for their partnership and sponsorship. Through their work in Grenada, GCRUIS has supported initiatives that strengthened climate resilience, improve water resource management, and promote sustainable development and build stronger partnerships between government, communities, and the private sector. Their commitment to institutional strengthening and good governance aligns perfectly with the objectives of this symposium, and we are deeply appreciative of their continued investment in Grenada's development. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking GIZ and the GCRUIS project for making this event possible. Thank you, Marianne, and your team. We will end now the official ceremony for the opening of this two-day symposium, and we'll have a short break and come back for our technical sessions. Thank you, Minister Andrews, Minister Cornwall, PSs. Thank you, everyone, and see you shortly. For those of you who need the agenda for the days today and tomorrow, you can scan the QR code on the screen, and see you back in 20 minutes. General Legal Counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Michael Archibald as he comes to do his presentation this morning.
Good morning. With your permission, I'll stand by the protocol already established. Members and participants in the 2026 Procurement Symposium, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, good morning. It really is a pleasure for me this morning to join you at this important symposium, which is dedicated to strengthening Grenada's procurement ecosystem and dedicated to enhancing the competitiveness of our businesses. Our subject today is competing through collaboration. That includes joint ventures, partnerships, and consortiums as pathways to broader markets and to greater opportunities. I am convinced that this topic will become increasingly important to businesses throughout Grenada and throughout the wider Caribbean in the years ahead, and that is competing through collaboration. At first glance, colleagues, the idea may sound contradictory. After all, we have been taught from an early age that business is about competition. We compete for customers, we compete for contracts, we compete for market share, and we compete for profits. Yes, competition remains an essential part of business. It drives innovation, it drives efficiency, and it drives continuous improvement. However, in today's rapidly changing business environment, successful organizations are discovering that competition and collaboration are not opposites. In fact, they are often complementary. The reality, colleagues, is that some opportunities are simply too large. They're simply too complex or too demanding for a single organization to pursue effectively on its own, especially business organizations in our relatively small size and limited capacity. The businesses that are thriving today in today's marketplace are not always the largest businesses. They are often the businesses that are nimble, they are forward-thinking, and they have learned how to collaborate strategically. That is the central message that I would like to leave with you today. Collaboration can significantly enhance a company's competitiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, the procurement landscape is changing, and changing rapidly. Across Grenada, across the OECS, across CARICOM, and internationally, procurement opportunities are becoming larger and more sophisticated. Projects increasingly require multiple areas of expertise, require greater financial capacity, require specialized technology, require project management capabilities, require environmental compliance, quality assurance systems, and require proven experience. Many businesses, and at the risk of being repetitious, of our general size and capacities, possess some of these capabilities, but very few possess them all. This creates a challenge, but it also creates an opportunity, and this is where we must focus our attention. The opportunity is to move away from thinking solely in terms of what can my company do, and begin asking what can we accomplish working with the right partners. This shift in thinking can open doors to opportunities that may have previously seemed out of our reach. Consider a local company that has excellent technical expertise but limited project management capacity. Consider also another company with strong project management experience but limited technology capability. Consider a third organization with financial strength and regional experience. Individually, Each company may struggle to compete for a large contract. Together, however, they may become a formidable competitor, and that is the power of collaboration. One of the most effective ways of businesses to collaborate is through strategic partnerships. Strategic partnerships allow businesses to combine strengths while maintaining their independence. A partnership may involve sharing expertise, jointly developing solutions, supporting each other in project delivery, or pursuing new markets together. These relationships often enable organizations to achieve outcomes that would be difficult to accomplish alone. Another approach is joint ventures. A joint venture occurs when two or more organizations come together for a specific project or a specific opportunity. Each partner contributes resources, expertise, and capabilities, and together they pursue a common objective. Joint ventures are particularly valuable when pursuing large projects that require a combination of skills, experience, and financial resources. They enable businesses to share risk, to share rewards, and significantly increase their competitiveness. Similarly, consortiums provide another pathway to growth. A consortium allows independent organizations to collaborate on a particular opportunity while remaining their separate identities. Consortiums are particularly useful when responding to major procurement opportunities that require multiple disciplines and a broad range of competencies. Instead of attempting to build every capacity internally, organizations can leverage the expertise of trusted partners. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps the greatest benefit of collaboration is that it allows businesses to access broader markets. Many firms become confined within their traditional markets because they believe their current capacity limits their ability to grow. As I was saying to one of my business friends last week, when he mentioned that he had plans to expand outside of Grenada, I said to him, we must stop complaining about foreign firms entering the Grenada market and focus instead on stopping the narrow thinking about the Grenada market alone, and instead start thinking about the OECS and CARICOM and even wider markets. But collaboration can change that equation. Through partnerships, joint ventures, and consortiums, local businesses can position themselves to pursue opportunities throughout Grenada, across the OECS, and throughout CARICOM, and even internationally. Markets that once appeared inaccessible suddenly become attainable. Contracts that once seemed beyond reach become realistic possibilities. Growth that once appeared difficult becomes achievable. The simple truth is that collaboration expands capacity, and expanded capacity creates expanded opportunities. Imagine for a moment a significant infrastructure project being advertised in Grenada or somewhere else in the region. That project requires engineering expertise. It requires construction services, environmental management, technology integration, financial strength, and project management. Very few local businesses could independently satisfy all these requirements. However, a consortium of complementary firms could do so. Together, they could present a stronger proposal, offer broader expertise, demonstrate greater capacity, and deliver greater value. Colleagues, this is not merely a theoretical concept. Around the world, some of our most successful projects are delivered through collaborative arrangements that bring together the best capabilities of multiple organizations, and therefore the lesson to us is clear. If we want to strengthen our procurement ecosystem and enhance our competitiveness, we must become more intentional about building strategic relationships. Of course, collaboration is not without challenges. Partnerships require trust. They require communication. They require clearly defined roles and responsibilities. They require transparency and accountability. And they require a willingness to focus on collective success rather than individual control. Many businesses hesitate because they fear losing independence or creating future competitors. These concerns are understandable. However, the greater risk may be failing to pursue opportunities because we are unwilling to collaborate. In many cases, businesses do not lose opportunities because they lack talent or expertise. They lose opportunities because they lack sufficient capacity. Collaboration provides a practical solution to that challenge. So what should businesses do? First, we should understand the differences between partnerships, joint ventures, and consortiums. They are all forms of business collaboration, but they differ in purpose and structure. A partnership is generally a long-term relationship in which businesses work together to achieve multiple goals and expand opportunities. A joint venture, on the other hand, is a more formal arrangement where two or more organizations combine resources to pursue a specific project or business opportunity, sharing both risks and rewards. And finally, a consortium is a group of independent organizations that come together to bid for or deliver a particular contract while maintaining their separate identities and specialized roles. In essence, partnerships build on ongoing relationships, joint ventures execute specific projects, and consortiums combine complementary expertise to pursue larger opportunities. Number two, you should assess your strengths and identify your gaps. 3, identify organizations whose strengths complement your own. 4, invest time in building relationships before opportunities arise. And that is important. Invest time in building relationships before opportunities arise. Successful collaborations rarely begin when a tender is published. They are built through trust, networking, communication, and mutual understanding developed over time. 5th, think beyond traditional boundaries and traditional markets. Think about wider markets. Look beyond your immediate industry, beyond your parish, and beyond your national borders. Some of the most valuable partnerships may be found in places that you have not yet explored. So we need a new perspective. Success today is often determined not only by what you know, but also by who you can work with effectively. Ladies and gentlemen, the future belongs to nimble organizations that can adapt, that can innovate, and that can collaborate. As procurement opportunities continue to evolve, competitiveness will increasingly depend not only on what your organization can do independently, but also on how effectively it can work with others. The question is no longer simply, how do we compete? The more important question may be, who can we collaborate with to become more competitive? As we seek to strengthen Grenada's procurement ecosystem, let us embrace a broader vision of business growth, one that recognizes collaboration as a strategic advantage. Let us build partnerships that create value. Let us form alliances that expand opportunity. Let us develop networks that strengthen competitiveness, and let us position our businesses not merely to participate in the marketplace, but to thrive in that marketplace. Because when businesses collaborate effectively, capacity increases, competitiveness improves, markets expand, and opportunities multiply. Together, we can achieve far more than any of us can achieve alone. I therefore consider the symposium theme, Strengthening Grenada's Procurement Ecosystem, as most appropriate at this time. And I thank you, and I wish you a productive and successful symposium. Thanks.
A lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom from over 40 years of experience shared with us here this morning. That's what this is about. We are giving you the tools. We're bringing in the experts. And we are creating the conversations that are necessary as we move things forward. And so, guys, we are almost 2 hours into the day. And, well, perhaps I shouldn't say that because many of us have been working before 9 o'clock this morning. So some of us is more than 2 hours into the day. And so over the course of today, you'll be hearing from experts across government, banking, insurance, engineering, procurement, sustainable development. You will have the opportunity to ask questions, you exchange ideas, and you will build valuable professional relationships. And that's why on the outside, we have 2 boards on either side of the corridor. We're saying to you, if you have business cards, you want to network, because that's been the revolving theme this morning, networking, partnerships. We're saying to you that you can stick your business card, your information, even if you have to write it on a piece of paper, do that. Put it on the board and let the people who have the expertise find you where you are. The agenda includes presentation on government procurement system intent, tax compliance, sustainable procurement, lessons from G-Cruise in a multidisciplinary panel discussion before the afternoon networking and partnership sessions. I encourage everyone to participate actively, network intentionally, and make the most of every session. And at this time, we want to transition to our second presentation so far for the morning, a brief introduction and tutorial on the government e-procurement system intent. And to deliver that, we welcome Ms. Brittany Bedford to do that presentation.
Protocol established. Good morning. Where can I find government contracts? Why do I have to come in physically to submit my bid? These questions highlight the challenges businesses have faced in navigating public procurement. Traditionally, tender opportunities have been spread across different channels, published in newspapers, posted on different websites, or just shared across various platforms. As many of you can attest, accessing this information is often time-consuming and inefficient, not to mention the challenges faced with having to physically deliver your bids. Recognizing these issues, we saw the need for something better, something centralized, more accessible, more efficient, a platform that allows bidders not only to view their opportunities, but to also submit their bids seamlessly. That vision became a reality in 2023 with the implementation of the intent system. This platform brings procurement into a modern digital space, making the process faster, accessible, and more transparent. While not all tenders are currently published to this platform just yet, it is our goal to make it the single comprehensive source for all public procurement opportunities. Today, I am pleased to provide you with a brief demonstration of this e-procurement system. Firstly, we recommend that you visit our public procurement website, procurement.gov.gd. Not only can you access the e-procurement link from there, but you will also view some of our other resources, such as our contract notices, contract awards, or items we have up for disposal. To access the link to the e-procurement platform, you would go under suppliers registration, then click the link highlighted in blue. This will then take you to the Intent electronical platform. Once there, you're required to register. To do so, please click the yellow registration button. Here, you are required to fill in basic information, such as your company name, your address, and your telephone number. Important to note, however, is the business classifications tab. The classifications that you choose here will determine which notifications you receive. So for example, if you are a supplier of computers, you will click the classification called computers. This means that whenever a computer-related tender is published, you will receive a notification straight into your inbox. To view tenders, you will go on to the Tenders tab and click Current. There, you'll be able to see the full list of tenders currently available on our platform. If you're interested in the procurement process or you would like to view more, you would click on View Details, which would then take you to a different page with all the tender information. You also have the option to send in your procurement-related queries through the system. So if you desire any clarifications or have any questions, you would also send it in through the system. This brings me to the end of this brief demonstration. As I close, I would just like to strongly encourage anyone interested in doing business with the government, whether as a supplier, a contractor, or a consultant, to register on the platform and to keep abreast with the tenders posted on our website, procurement.gov.gd. Thank you.
Thank you so much to my colleague, Brittany. If you know Brittany, she's the quietest in the room, but today she surprised us all. We are continuing our technical sessions, and so at this junction, we will be discussing sustainable procurement. All right, so increasingly around the world, procurement is being viewed not simply as purchasing goods and services, but as a strategic tool for sustainable development. It influences environmental responsibilities, social impact, economic resilience, and long-term value for money. To share insights on this important topic, it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Leslie Smith. And Mr. Smith will give us a presentation on sustainable procurement. Mr. Smith.
That's the wrong one. So that's it here. You have the adapter. I can't use it. You're not right, Jeremiah. Let me know.
your email address? CCC. What did that happen? Alright, let's see if I can't download it. I did it. Got it. No, that's not it still. I think it downloaded it. Create a copy. Copy. Right now it's not nice. Oh. That's it now. Send it out to you. I should have adapted. No. Yeah, okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience as we try to overcome a little technical issue here. So I have the next 15 minutes with you, and I believe half of my presentation was covered in the opening ceremony and moments ago in terms of a number of the procurement issues. But I have the distinct pleasure to speak on a unique area of procurement, which is sustainable procurement, and which is so timely and so opportune these days as we grapple with many of these adverse climatic activities that is affecting us. And so sustainable procurement ought to be given due consideration when we look at procurement. As a matter of fact, the Renewable Energy Division did make a submission to the Central Procurement Unit to include sustainable procurement in the revision of the Public Procurement Act. And I think that was one of the considerations in the review of it. And that is so critical for us because, as you will see from the presentation, there are a number of important factors that are needed to be considered when we look at procurement of goods and services. And I'm saying that in the context of what is happening globally now with oil prices, electricity prices, the need for energy efficient appliances and devices, the needs for policy and legislative review to ensure that we have minimum energy performance standards, to ensure that we achieve our climate and environmental goals that we've set at the national level. And so it is very critical that we do that. Because one thing we can do for sure is that we can save a lot of money, we can make a lot of business decisions, but if we don't have an environment to live in and to enjoy it, it comes to naught. So it's not about saving money, but it's about creating the right environment. And so we've overcome the challenges, so we can start with the presentation. So sustainable procurement, as I was saying a moment ago, is so critical in the whole scheme of things for procurement. So okay, there we go. Thank you again. So sustainable procurement, by definition, is the process of acquiring goods and services and works in a way that delivers value for money. We heard a lot about value for money this morning, while generating positive environmental, social, and economic outcomes throughout their life cycle. So I'm going to look at three themes this morning, and the three themes would be environmental sustainability, social responsibility, and economic viability as three of the key areas with regards to sustainable procurement. Well, thank you so much. But before I go into what sustainable procurement is all about, I want to just bear in mind and to keep focus on why sustainable procurement is so important. So we have our nationally determined contributions, which is essentially Grenada's commitment to reducing its greenhouse gas emissions. And in the second iteration of our nationally determined contributions, Grenada has set the ambitious targets of reducing its greenhouse gas emissions by 30% of the 2010 levels by 2025, with an indicative reduction of 40% of the same 2010 levels by 2030. And these are indeed very, very ambitious targets that have been set by the government of Grenada with regards to its commitment under the Paris Agreement. Now, under this same NDC 2.0, as a matter of fact, we have a 3.0 now that is before Cabinet for publishing. 30% of these reduction in greenhouse gases ought to come from reduction in electricity production. As you know, 90% of our electricity comes from diesel generated, which is a very dirty fuel. And the efficiency that we're getting from diesel now is just about 18%, again, because of the types of engines that Grenada has. And so a lot of the diesel that is being imported for electricity goes out as emissions. And from that, 10% is supposed to come from renewables and 20% from energy efficiency. So right away, you should understand that procurement of goods in particular ought to take those into consideration to help us achieve those targets. And just by way of updating, by the end of 2025, we already achieved 10% penetration in terms of renewable energy used for electricity generation. And now we are currently employing efforts in regards to energy efficiency to ensure that the most energy efficient appliances are procured. So there are some common principles for sustainable procurement. Value for money, you would always hear about value for money. And I'm going to delve into it a little deeper because a lot of the times people believe value for money is about the cheapest cost, and that's quite the opposite. Transparency and accountability, fair competition, environmental stewardship, all of these that you see on the screen are some key elements in terms of sustainable procurement principles. So in procuring goods, services, and work, we ought to consider those overarching principles in making the final determination before we procure. And procurement, sustainable procurement must take into account a number of the international policies and frameworks, as well as the national and local policy and frameworks that we have. So for example, we have the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that speaks about a whole wide range of policies and issues that we must take into consideration before we do procurement. So for example, we have goal number 7, which speaks about energy that we need to take into consideration. Then we have the United Nations Environment Program for Sustainable Public Procurement. We also have the ISO 2400 standards that needs to be considered. And then locally, we also have some policies that need to be considered. We have our National Sustainable Development Plan 2035, our National Energy Policy, our climate change policy, our national adaptation plan, and several other policies that have been established with regards to achieving those targets I mentioned earlier relative to our nationally determined contributions. So people who are procuring these goods and services must be intimately familiar with those national policies so that the right decisions are made. Very often we get gifts, very often we negotiate things, and when they get here, the technology that is in them is contrary to the international agreements we signed for environmental stewardship and the multilateral environmental agreements as well. So I always say that it is always a good idea to consult with the various line ministries before we procure goods and services of a particular technology to ensure that they are in line with our international commitments. And so some of the criteria that should be used for sustainable procurement, I'm going to look at 3 of them: environmental, social, and governance. And so we need to look at energy efficiency. For some electrical appliances here in Grenada, we do have minimum energy performance standards. So we must ensure that these appliances conform to the minimum energy performance standards, which are the most energy efficient appliances in that particular subsector. We must also consider renewable energy use, the avoidance of having to use diesel. As I mentioned, diesel is a very dirty fuel. The avoidance of having to use gasoline and diesel again for transportation. So we're looking now at e-mobility and the use of electric vehicles, how we reduce these carbon emissions, water consumption and water efficiency must be central to that as well as part of our sustainable procurement policies. And we also must look at end-of-life treatment of these goods and services, these goods that we procure as well. What do we do with the unusable batteries? What do we do with the plastic containers? What do we do with the end of life of a lot of the things that we procure? So that must be central in terms of central procurement, sustainable procurement as well. And then we must look at the social aspect as well. How do we view people? How do we view safety, wages, inclusion in terms of gender, in terms of disability? How do we cater for these persons as well? And we heard Mr. Archibald spoke about small businesses. We heard Minister Andrews spoke about small businesses. How do we involve the small and medium-sized enterprises as part of the social responsibility for sustainable procurement? And then we also must consider the governance structure in terms of anti-corruption measures, in terms of the supply chain issues that we have now, and regulatory compliance, ethical standards, and corporate responsibilities that we have with regards to sustainable procurement. So as many of the speakers before me said, sustainable procurement is not, or procurement, sorry, is not just about buying goods and services. It's a whole complex set of issues that must be considered when we speak about sustainable procurement. So the governance structure is very critical in that regard. I will not go too deep into this sustainable procurement process because I believe the Central Procurement Unit would take care of the procurement procedures locally. But just to say that what you see on the screen are a number of the factors that must be considered in this cycle of sustainable procurement. So from the needs assessment to the evaluation of the items that are procured, all of that must be considered in this approach to sustainable procurement. And there are numerous benefits of sustainable procurement. I mentioned earlier that we can save as much money as we want, we can achieve as much as we want if we do not have an environment to live in and to enjoy all of those benefits. It may not mean a whole lot to us. So there are some environmental benefits in the sense that we will be reducing greenhouse gas emissions, we will be controlling global warming, we will be abating a number of the global climatic catastrophic events, the hurricanes, the tsunamis, etc., by reducing these greenhouse gases. We will be promoting energy efficiency, energy security, energy resilience, especially now with what is happening globally with our oil prices and the geopolitical tensions and issues that affects us who are technology takers. Minimizing waste and pollution, we always try to do waste management strategy, but have we considered not generating waste? If we do not generate waste, it means that there would be no need to have all of these waste management strategies and so. So we continue to generate waste and we continue to have the issues surrounding waste and pollution. And then the circular economy is also important. How do we reuse, recycle, reclaim, repurpose a lot of the goods that we consume at the moment? The social benefits is for the fair labor practices, to promote the issues of gender and disability, and to encourage local development. The small businesses, as I mentioned, they can all benefit from sustainable procurement. And there's always the economic benefits by lowering the operating and maintenance costs, reducing the resource competition, the resilience against the supply chain issues, and of course, better long-term value for our taxpayers. So these are just some of the benefits of sustainable procurement that we need to take into consideration. And I want to zero in on this particular phenomena here, which we refer to as the life cycle cost. So very often we focus on the upfront cost, and we don't pay attention to the life cycle cost. So the item looks cheap, and we say we'll go for the cheaper item. Or sometimes it's just what we can afford. We just cannot afford the more expensive appliances. But the life cycle cost is even more important than the upfront cost. And I have an example there for you. Comparing the incandescent, or what we refer to as the old-time bulbs, the one that gives us a lot of the heat, with an LED bulb. So these incandescent bulbs would have cost about $3.50. We don't find them on the shelves anymore. And an LED on average would cost about maybe $12. But if you look at the bottom there, you will see the total life cycle cost of the two bulbs. So whereas the incandescent bulb costs $3.50 and the LED costs $12, if we take into account the operation and life cycle costs, at the end of the day, the LED would cost $21.50. The incandescent bulb would cost $47. So you will be spending more just to turn the switch on to operate an incandescent bulb as compared to an LED bulb if you just go by life cycle cost. And we can use this example for many other issues. Air conditioning. You can buy a fixed speed compressor air conditioner that is very cheap, or you can buy an inverter type air conditioner that is more expensive, but over the life cycle of the air conditioner, the inverter one would be cheaper to operate, and so you will save on your electricity bill as compared to the fixed speed compressor. So the life cycle cost takes into account the purchase costs, the installation costs, the operating costs, the maintenance costs, the disposal. Sometimes we put insurance into that as well. And at the end of the day, the life cycle cost is what is critical. So in the case of the LEDs again, for every one LED bulb that you would use 25 of those incandescent bulbs because of the life cycle and the number of hours you can get from an LED bulb. And that brings us to what we call the iceberg theory or the iceberg effect. So the initial cost is the tip of the iceberg that you see above the water. But below the water is the bulk or the more dangerous part of the iceberg, which is the hidden cost or the life cycle cost. So if we focus heavily on that upfront cost, the visible cost, it sometimes sends us in the wrong direction because, again, the life cycle cost is what is the critical thing. So many times we have tenders go out with specifications, and the policy is to take the cheapest or the lowest tender. And that may not always be the best tender. Because again, we need to look at the full life cycle cost of the goods that we are procuring. And there are often challenges and barriers to sustainable procurement. So we have, as mentioned, the higher perceived upfront costs. So let's look at electric vehicles, for example. Electric vehicles may have a higher upfront cost, but because there is no need to buy gasoline, because there is no need for a 3-month maintenance, because there's little or no maintenance that is required, the upfront cost may be an illusion. The good news for us here in Grenada is actually cheaper to land an electric vehicle as compared to an internal combustion engine vehicle because of the fiscal incentives that government is offering for electric vehicles. So the upfront cost sometimes is prohibitive in nature, but again, it is not always the deciding factor when it comes to procurement. And then we have the issue of limited supplier availability. Supply chain issues continue to be a major challenge. Freight costs, routes, getting goods here, availability of suppliers who can deliver on time, the lack of technical capacity, again, to deal with a number of these new and emerging technologies. Insufficient data is a major issue for us, and the quality of data that we have. Data is so important for making quality decisions that if you don't have good data, very often you make bad decisions. And then we have resistance to organizational change. The people in the procurement unit must be up to date with what is happening. You must be up to date, and suppliers also must be up to date with some of the new and emerging technologies. Some people put a block against change and against updating technology. Some people don't believe in AI and how we integrate artificial intelligence and that technology with our goods that we procure. So that too can be a challenge and a barrier towards sustainable procurement. So in concluding, I just want to highlight some key areas for sustainable procurement in Grenada. So I want to bring it home. So we must consider climate resilience and all of these catastrophic effects. 2024 was maybe one of the worst years we had in recent times. It started with a drought, then we had Beryl, then we had 2 major floods towards October, November. And so we were faced with many environmental catastrophic events in 2024. We must also consider energy efficiency and renewable energy, because that can make a significant difference. We can achieve a lot of savings through energy efficiency and renewable energy that can be used into other productive sectors. Water conservation, and I'm happy that GCRUISE is part of this initiative today because water efficiency is so critical. Many people believe that there'll be wars that will be fought for water, not for oil in the future. The circular economy and waste reduction is another important consideration for circular procurement. How do we recycle, recover, reclaim, repurpose a lot of the materials that we have? Economic development is another key area. Social inclusion, as I mentioned, gender and persons with who are differentially abled. The agriculture sector, the tourism sector, and of course, I mentioned life cycle costing earlier on. So the key takeaways, we need to buy for value, not for price. It's very critical. Consider environmental, economic, and social impacts across the entire life cycle. And sustainable procurement is a strategic tool for achieving climate, development, and economic objectives. And I want to end with the quotation at the bottom of the slide, which says, "Every procurement decision is an investment decision. Sustainable procurement ensures that public spending delivers not only goods and services, but also long-term environmental resilience, social well-being, and economic value." I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that the presentation will change a lot of the thinking of some people who are engaged in procurement of goods, services, and work for the various institutions and organizations. Thank you very much. Please don't be too mindful about the note you see at the back of the laptop. I do get a lot of rest sometimes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Smith. Very interesting presentation. And the part that stuck out to me, because just a few days ago, my wife told me the same thing. Stop buying for price, buy for value. And I think that's something that we all practice. We buy for price. Well, us men, we buy based on what we are told to buy. So if you're told to buy X, we're going to buy that. We don't check the price, we don't check nothing, just buy that. And so it's important that we learn to buy for value rather than just buying because the price is right or the price is low. Very, very, very important information there. Thank you so much, Mr. Smith, and the entire team at the Ozone Unit within the Ministry of Climate Resilience. All right, folks, so we are continuing with our technical sessions, and one of the things that you would note is if you buy for price and not for value, you are going to learn some lessons. And while we're on the area of lessons, we want to talk about lessons a little bit in depthly. So partnership creates opportunities, as you may know. And with those opportunities, you get sometimes to learn, to innovate, or to improve. One such valuable partnership has been between the GCRUISE project, whose support continues to strengthen its institutions and build resilience throughout Grenada. To share some of the experiences and the lessons learned, it is my absolute pleasure to invite to the podium my colleague Marianne Jenis, who will give us a rundown of some of the lessons that the GCRUISE, GIZ would have learned over their time here in Grenada. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for, as we affectionately call her, Marianne.
Good morning, everyone. I know my name made people a little bit chuckle. If you want to speak correctly in German, it's Geis. So just, my name is Marion Geis. I'm the head of the GIZ GCRUISE project. I'm very, very pleased to be here today, and I'm very pleased that we are partnering with the Central Procurement Unit of the Ministry of Finance here today. This has been longer discussion in the making, and while we are at the end of the GCRUISE project, it's not so late, and there's so many other things in the pipeline. And I'm very pleased to also present a few lessons learned today and hopefully give some practical example of one of the major projects here currently executed in Grenada. So while I'm waiting for the presentation to be on screen, So I hope by now you have all heard about the climate resilient water sector in Grenada, GCRUISE project. If not, we probably need to work on our PR still, but I think Janelle did a tremendous job, so I'm pretty sure that you're all familiar with that. So the GCRUISE project actually started in 2019. We are now in the final and 7th year. We went a little bit longer, and this is also to a huge part because we also dealt with a lot of procurement, and I will tell you a little bit about that. And we did not manage to stay in our timeline, but we are now, I would say we are on track. We're gonna make it. So the GCRUISE project is up to date. I still believe the biggest grant project that Grenada has been able to obtain from the international funding. The Ashton International Funding, you heard that today already a few times. It's the Green Climate Fund. It's the first Green Climate Fund project for Grenada. That's a major deal in the climate world. It's also the first for the German Development Corporation, GIZ. So we partner there. And it's also a project that was jointly developed back since 2016, 2017, and it was a long journey. Our partners is the government of Grenada, mainly Ministry of Finance, NAWASA, Ministry of Infrastructure as the political partner, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Climate Resilience, but also the Grenada Development Bank, and other valuable partners, including civil society, private sector, and so on. GIZ serves as the accredited entity. Actually, it's not me, it's my headquarter in Germany who's overall responsible for that. But we here with a team since the beginning of the project as well, with our offices working very closely on the ground. The German Environmental Ministry also contributes with funding to it, so we're very grateful for that as well as I have to acknowledge as well that the government of Grenada actually puts a substantial amount down as in-kind contribution of 10% to the project. Overall, we want to achieve to make the water sector in Grenada more climate resilient. We heard from Mr. Leslie Smith already what the challenges are. We heard about the recent disasters we are facing. We'll face more of those. And water, as you know, we're just coming out of the dry season, is still one of our major issues. This is the GCRUISE project in a nutshell. Don't worry, I will not bore you now with going into details of all the nitty-gritty activities. I invite you to follow our social media and all our communication, and you will learn about all these different aspects. But maybe just let me give you a very quick rundown. Over half of the money of these 130 million ECs, grant money, goes into water infrastructure. You've seen the pipes being laid, the tanks going up, and so on. I know it's still an inconvenience in some places. We're working hard on it. But it will become better. And then there's also other things that you might not see because they're happening in-country. They're happening where the NAWASA workers going day to day into the mountains, often manually. So right now there's a water transfer pipeline going right through the cross-country to the Grenada, manual labor being built there at the moment. It's really, really hard work. I think some of our contractors might be in the room. There's IT, there's a digital transformation happening in NAWASA with a lot of effort to actually make the operation more efficient. There is remote monitoring. We're working on occupational health and safety, disaster management, emergency planning. We do work on the check dams. We am putting up some solar PV in the NAWASA operation. So there's a lot more happening than just the water tanks and the pipes, which is, however, a major thing. We also work with Ministry of Health, have equipped 13 health centers with additional water storage to cater for droughts or spells where we don't have access to potable pipe water. Working also on institutional strengthening of better water management. We're working as well on several regulations with the government to improve that. We work with the procurement unit on sustainable procurement. We're working on the training sector with plumbers and the Grenada National Training Authority and all of that. So, and then of course the water resource management for the long future, setting up a water resource management unit together with Ministry of Infrastructure and PERC. In that regard, better climate monitoring, better data management, so much more. At the end, the main beneficiaries will be the overall population of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, public schools, health centers, tourism sectors, agriculture. I want to show you that figure. So all of that, what I just explained in a nutshell, 77% of all the money coming from these grants is going through procurement processes. Contracts of works, consultancies, procurement of goods, othering like event management and so on. So we have to follow procurement in that. That translates roughly to about 91 million EC that we actually managed to procure in the last 7 years. And that's a lot of effort and a lot of bureaucracy. Let me give you some visuals here. So this is what we're doing. This is the paperwork that translates on the ground. You see the health centers, you see the cross-country pipelines, you see the pipelines on the road, solar PVs, health center, storage places, the big storage tank you see popping up on the Tri-Island State, pump stations in Seven Sisters, check dams, rehabilitation. We have consultancy services that have been on the ground, sometimes not that visible as the construction work, but the youth, we had water ambassadors in the youth and partnered with NGOs and employed consultants. We had consultants coming in from the region talking about social media and AI. We had trainings with consultants and trainers, groundwater wells monitoring, irrigation equipment with the farmers and training how to install that. We had environmentalists looking at data in our rivers, measuring flows in our rivers, doing asset mapping on the island of already installed NAWASA equipment, trainings, more trainings, journalist media workshops. And that was just a few, we had did a lot more. Procurement of goods. We got a lot of new equipment. The Challenge Fund for Agriculture, I come to that in a little bit. Micro sprinklers here were procured. Water efficient devices like water saving toilets for the tourism sector, for hotels. The same for faucets. Rainwater harvesting tanks for farmers and for the tourism sector. Equipment, like digital equipment for NAWASA to do their mappings, pipes, more equipment for occupational health and safety for NAWASA. The shower heads, more irrigation equipment for farmers. Yeah, it's also occupational health and safety. And then we also shade houses and so on. There's much, much more than that. We also did a lot of procurement in the areas of what we're doing here today. Events, awareness, working with the creative industry, putting awareness material on buses, hosting and supporting the government and the Heads of CARICOM event, doing material for children working with schools, carnival awareness for water safety, the Heads of CARICOM government event cocktail. So you're seeing a lot of things are happening in the teams. We're working constantly around working with the bureaucracy, and also all these measures have some kind of a local or regional involvement. There are international procured goods, but when it comes to contracting of works, there's always employment and subcontracting locally. So we should not forget that this all generates income and it generates employment. It also generates capacity, because in the case, for example, of the pipe laying, there were trainings accompanying NAWASA staff, construction workers, on how to improve and modernize pipe laying so that the pipes will last another 70 years in the ground and we will not have to dig them up and have leakages in that time. And as I mentioned, we're coming with international donor money. And when it comes to international donor money, the bar is high. We have to actually justify every little cent we're spending. It has to be accounted for, and it has to be well documented. And it won't become easier. I can promise you that. Even if there's a resistance, it will not succeed. It will always, the standards will go higher. We're working more in an IT-driven and more, sometimes a little bit difficult IT processes that dictate of how we operate. And we're all transitioning to these, and we will have to adapt. So it needs a well-structured procurement and contract management to operate and execute these projects. So in the particular case of G-Cruise, the project had to follow two sets of rules. It had to follow the accredited entity rules that we had promised the donor to execute, and it had to also follow the Government of Grenada rules. And unfortunately, it was not that the most open and flexible would apply, it was always the more stringent. So we also had to study both of the procurement environments and apply those. And what at the end really matters is not what we're saying or what the central procurement unit says, it's actually what the auditor says. So all of this had to be audit proof, and the big goal was to avoid ineligible costs. So what would we do to actually get ready for that? So when the project was set up, procurement was just something that, like in every project, that you just assume will happen and that are processes in place. But what we additionally recognized fairly early in the project is that we need to do training. All the project staff needs to have some understanding of procurement. So we did several procurement trainings within the project team, with also additional help, to get all the main officers very fit to execute procurement, plan and execute procurement. We also did write ourselves an operational manual looking at the different guidelines and giving instruction to actually go through the whole process of what we have to do. The project made provisions from the beginning to have 100% staffed procurement officer. That did not materialize right from the start in this kind of a sense, but we did, luckily, and I'm looking at Ms. Harris, Amita Harris. She came in 2023, and I have to say we would have not succeeded without her. So a big thank you for the Central Procurement Unit, because I have to acknowledge that her expertise and her enthusiasm and her diligence is also the training up the NAWASA engineers to become actually procurement officers to some extent, made a tremendous difference to the project. And we also, we integrated procurement and payment process, contract management really, into our regular planning process and the project management committee. I want to give one of the examples, that is the Challenge Fund for Tourism and Agriculture. The name was well chosen because it is a challenge sometimes for so many reasons. And one of them is the difficult procurement setup that was written into the project and gave us a real headache, or continues to give us a headache. And we're working hard on it as the whole project management team. When it was designed, the consultant who designed it at that time, I think, had a bit of a optimistic view of how a small island operates and what market structure there, or didn't really look at it in the profound way that we should have done. And I looked at Mr. Smith's presentation earlier, and one of the slides was looking at the different planning cycles. And I was like, yeah, it's a good reminder and a good checklist to actually look market analysis, know your supplier market. So the way the Challenge Fund works is, or how it was set up, is usually a farmer or a hotel would go buy some equipment, get quotes for 3 equipments, and then goes to the Grenada Development Bank and asks for the money back. That didn't work that way. We had to adjust it. However, even the equipment on the island is limited. Often it comes from outside. There's limited choice. To get even 3 quotes for something comparable sometimes is a challenge. There are not many suppliers. Many suppliers also have to order after there's a demand. Then stocks are easily gone. So you ask for your quotations, you come back, you give it to GDB, it's processed, reviewed, and so on. A few weeks later, it's no longer in stock and the supplier doesn't have it anymore. So we do face these challenges here in this context. So we had to adapt, we had to constantly find ways of how to tackle that. Also maintenance services, if you have a new technology that you procure internationally under project, maintenance and servicing might be an issue, or even replacing parts and so on. You have to always go outside. And that is a challenge. For the water supply infrastructure, I already mentioned at the end, NAWASA Navasa's engineer became contract managers and procurement officers at a certain extent. So they had to learn and to comply with that. And these are engineers and technical people, right? So you probably are in similar way. You have to be adaptable, or you need to know who you ask. So yeah, the expertise from the central procurement unit is critical for a project like this. Constant monitoring, contract monitoring, know your deadlines, know your guidelines, know what's eligible, what's not, and which process to follow, what needs to be changed, because no contract of works actually goes as planned, so you always have to make adjustments. And then, of course, also communication, constant communication and monitoring with the Ministry of Finance for payments and so on, because we're working also with 3 different currencies in some cases, so currency fluctuation matters as well. Your payment processes need to be pushed through and so on. And in the end, every time it matters what the external audit will say after the next year when they're actually coming in. A project like G-Cruise, the external audit companies that come internationally in, they come once a year and they look at all these contracts. And if they find something that is irregular, it might not be eligible under the fund. So this is very, very important, and it's basically our bar. I want to just quickly elaborate as well that there were other opportunities we saw within the G-Cruise project to help procurement, to help the retailers, the financial sectors, and the capacity as such when it comes to water conservation. So we did do trainings and worked and reached out one-on-one to retail staff, to the main providers of water efficient devices or water devices in general. So hopefully now they're all water efficient device providers and not inefficient anymore. So toilets, faucets, also tanks, rainwater harvesting systems. We had a supplier workshop in 2024 during the drought, and when there all these emergency was, we were able to obtain pledges of commitments that suppliers and retailers did commit to bringing in water efficient devices, tanks and so on, and if there was an incentive by government to pass that on. We worked a lot on awareness. So a lot of campaigns sensitizing from the little preschool children up to their grandparents basically in the communities and most vulnerable. We try to address all the demographics on providing information on water efficiency and rainwater harvesting and the benefits of it. We work with all the major banks and financial institutes on green loan programs, providing technical information, partnering with them, also on awareness campaigns on their green loan programs. And I'm happy to say that all the major banks had actually adopted some form of water conservation in their green loan programs and energy efficiency as well. And of course, with government, our main partner, we will continue to work on providing technical support and to elaborate on concessions, tax incentives, sustainable procurement guidelines, and that is actually available. There's like a checklist is available on the internet on the Climate Resilience GovGD website. We're drafting a rainwater harvesting legislation that is currently in the final station, and there was an elaborate stakeholder consultation done across the Tri-Island state to talk about how to flesh this out to be fair and inclusive, and that's with the Physical Development Authority as a main partner. The amendment to the Consumer Protection Act to include water efficient devices, and also the Grenada National Training Authority and their update of the NVQ and CVQ to include water conservation, rainwater harvesting skill sets in future plumber trainings. So in a nutshell, what are the main takeaways from a project like G-Cruise when it comes to procurement? Well, know your supply chain and your market. This is some lesson we really learned, especially through the Challenge Fund, where the local materials, what is your supplier market, establish a relationship with that. Also know what is out there, of course. Simplify supply chains if you can. Factor in material shortage, especially when it comes to implementation schedules. Liaise with all local suppliers and potential stakeholders, and build a capacity alongside the execution of the project. Provide sufficient procurement and contract management capacity within the project team. I was speaking about that. We trained all the main staff, hire sufficient staff and resources from the get-go of the project, and budget for it. And then, of course, monitor and plan continuously and adapt your project management as needed. So thank you for your attention, for listening to the few lessons learned from the GCRUISE project on that. If there's ever a grievance with one of our construction site or something, there is an official grievance mechanism. I hope we can continue to sort out any challenges. And if you want to know more, we do have a social media link tree and social media sites. So I invite everyone to visit also the Climate Resilience GovTD website, where we publish and upload all the supporting documents. Thank you very much. And I wish us all a very fruitful symposium.
A lot of information, a lot of critical information. And we thank Marianne, we thank GCRUISE, we thank GIZ for the continued investment in the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. We appreciate you guys. Put your hands together again for Marianne and her team and all of the hard work that they have been doing over the past couple of months planning this event. We have had a lot of meetings, and Marianne has always been very detailed. All right, so we are now moving into what promises to be one of the most engaging segments of today's program, and that will be our panel discussion. So we have a panel discussion for you, and this discussion brings together professionals from banking, insurance, quality surveillance, civil engineering, and procurement practices to highlight the importance of collaboration and strength in partnership in successfully delivering public projects. And this will be chaired by Mr. Russell John. So Mr. Russell John serves as the acting Chief Communications Officer within the Ministry of Finance, where he leads the ministry's strategic communications and public information initiatives. In this role, he is responsible for developing and coordinating communication strategies that strengthens public engagement, promote transparency and effective communications, governance principles, programs, and national finance initiative. With a background spanning education, communication, and public service, Mr. John brings a unique collaboration of analytical thinking, leadership, and strategic messaging to his role. Prior to assuming this current role, prior to this present role, serving in the Ministry of Education, he served as the vice principal of the Anglican High School, where he spent the last 17 or so years. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Russell John, my boss, and the Chief Corporate Communications Officer within the Ministry of Finance.
All right, so good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for having me this morning, and I hope we're looking forward to the discussion that we're going to have over the next few minutes or so. As mentioned, we have a pretty exciting panel that's going to be joining us, Each of our panelists is going to get a few minutes to address the audience, and then we're going to dive into the discussion. So we have quantity surveyors in the room, we have insurance brokers in the room, and I'm not sure, no, I'm feeling a little comfortable. So I'm going to ask the camera to not pick this up, just in case some of our bosses and supervisors might be watching online. But raise your hand if you have a side business. You know what? Let's leave it alone. Let's leave it alone. I suspect some of you may not want to answer that question publicly. But the growth of our business matters. And I know many of you're here today because you're looking for opportunities to grow that business. And there are some things that you may not have considered at all. I'm not sure how many businesses feel that they're at a level where they need or can afford insurance. I'm not sure how many of you have even considered insurance at all. But if you're in high-risk fields where there's a high level of unpredictability, then I think insurance is something that at the very least you should consider. And so hopefully after our panel discussion today, we'll be able to start bridging the gap on those conversations. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to put your hands together. I want a lusty round of applause as we welcome our panelists this morning. And since we started with insurance, I'm going to take the honor and privilege to call Miss Michelle Chase to the podium. A round of applause for Michelle. She has over 30 years of experience in insurance brokerage. She's currently overseeing Gallagher Insurance Brokers Grenada Limited, who recently celebrated 20 years on island. Lady Chase, thank you so much for joining us this morning. So she's going to talk insurance. Alongside her is Mr. Earl Thomas. I have a special place in my heart for Earl. I'll tell you why as he makes his way forward. Reading Earl's CV gave me the definition of work your way up. He was a site supervisor, a draftsman, junior project manager, facility supervisor, quantity surveyor, here and abroad. Put your hands together for Earl. And so costing is important. Mr. Smith spoke to one type of costing. And of course, we have a quantity surveyor here. For those of us who have the side businesses that we don't want to talk about, right, we can perhaps pose some questions to Earl to refine how we do what we do. It's important, today is a procurement symposium, and the Central Procurement Unit is your chief partner if you're looking for government projects. So we have on the panel this morning Mr. Avon Lucas. He is the Senior Procurement Officer at the Central Procurement Unit in the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Lucas, please join us on stage. And let's, of course, all of this is not possible without financing, money. One of the participants this morning remarked, if you're not talking money, tell me now and send me home. And so, sir, we're talking money. And to assist us with the financing side of our conversation this morning, please welcome Mr. Randy Frank. Randy wears many hats within the Grenadian economy, and I'm sure that you would have met him in one of those. But this morning, he is here representing the Nexa Credit Union as the Deputy President, General Manager. I hope the Board of Directors isn't watching. And he says, I hope so too. So, we're going to dive into the conversation this morning and see if we can unpack a few things. Now, in the grand scheme of things, we have financing, we have insurance, we have quantity surveying, and I don't know, again, how many of us encapsulate the entire idea of what a project is. A lot of times we consider the profit to be made, the money to be made, but the real how to behind it, and we mentioned that this morning, takes a lot of planning. And so initially we conceived the panel, and as we reviewed and tightened the process, we thought it absolutely critical to have on the panel this morning a civil engineer. He's going to address us later this evening, but he's also joining us for the panel this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Dwayne Noel. I tasked him with a very special task this afternoon, so I'm looking forward to that. We'll be chatting about it over lunch. Awesome. So I'm going to start with Mr. Thomas. It's a pretty tight fit. So you just go ahead and slide. You can sit where you are. If you feel comfortable standing, feel free. You'll stand, not a problem. All right. And as mentioned, each of our panelists will have a few minutes to address us from their field of expertise, and then we jump into the actual conversation.
Good day, everyone. As you made mention of working my way up, yes, it's about 23 years this quarter I've actually started my journey into construction. So I started as a laborer on a site, but because I have a knowledge of reading drawings, I then started to supervise the guys. And then I went down to TAMCC, got my associates, started work by DJ, and I must say I have one of the best experience because straight out of school came Hurricane Ivan. So everything that I was taught in school, it unfolds in terms of building back better, in terms of having quantities, pulling measurements, and stuff like that. So I'm a quantity surveyor. What is a quantity surveyor? Who is a quantity surveyor? Put it this way, a quantity surveyor is simply an accountant in the construction industry. So say a accountant in a business deals with goods and services. In construction, material and labor. But in terms of pricing, you will break it down some more. So you will have, when you have pricing, you tend to look at material, labor, transportation. You have what you call plant, which is your equipment. And then also, as a contractor, from that side of things, you have overheads, and then you would like to make a profit. So these are the key factors you will use if you have to put together a price. Now, you have from organizations will send out tender documents, bid documents. The contractor from the pricing side will encompass these things. Also, as a quantity surveyor, you have two types of quantity surveyors. You have for construction, and you have what we call a PQS, which is a private QS, which mainly works with an organization or has he or she own practice. So from that standpoint is where the budget costing comes into place. So he will prepare a budget bid for whatever said project, put together relevant tender documents. So from a financial structuring standpoint, you will send out invitation to bid, but contractors who is bidding will have to meet certain requirements. And oftentimes it mainly deals with a financial background. Your cash flow within and out of your company. So you can, or the person who's assessing will know what value of work this person can attain. And there are parameters. There are things like where from a contractor, he will have, you will know a contractor based on, based on his management team. They're one-man person who just have a pickup truck and call himself a contractor. Then they will have someone who will have an office, will have personals in the office. And then they will have someone who have an entire company. He's just a managing director, and he have quantity surveyors, he have engineers, architects within his firm. So these are avenues and where that quantity surveyors will fit in. What is the role of a quantity surveyor? One is to consult clients. You have conduct feasibility studies, calculate quantities and cost. You have manage risks, value engineering. You have cost comparison. As they from GQs rightly said earlier on, one of the fundamental issues I know we have here in Grenada is procurement of goods or even equipment and stuff from outside. Years ago, for a particular project I was working on, we had to track some marble tiles. Those tiles left Cyprus, went to Egypt, went to Spain, went to England, went to Tennessee, went down to Florida, went to Trinidad, and then came here to Grenada. It took 6 months plus to reach. You as a client will be flustered. Anybody will be fluttered. And then now, the previous price you got 2 years ago would have been, say, $100 for one tile. And now it comes to tell you $300 for that same tile. Where would you get the funding for that? Now, oftentimes, within a bid, you will have contingencies. And contingencies is for unforeseens. But there are times you may not predict the unforeseens. Classic example, COVID-19. The war in Iran. Now, government puts certain stipulations, for example, with the gas prices, where there's a threshold, a price ceiling, that once the price of gasoline, diesel goes over $17, they will step in. So there are parameters in which the government will put in place, but there are also, as a quantity surveyor, there are parameters that you have to put within a project. And these things are fundamental. It can make or break a project. Classic example of making or breaking up projects, or you have longevities in projects or projects going over time, is when the scope changes. And oftentimes in projects here in Grenada, we constantly have scope change. I'm sure you can understand that going through different terrains and stuff, because sometimes and oftentimes the proper fundamental insight or the work prior to the commencement of the project was not done properly. And hence, one of the reasons we will have cost overruns. So this is it for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we'll get an opportunity to dive into some specific questions to him as we go along. But I want to give a chance to Mr. Frank to talk about procurement from the financing side, so financial instruments that may be of use to those of us in the audience this morning. So, Mr. Frank, floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. That's not everybody. Oh, because it's afternoon already. That's why. Good afternoon, everybody. That's better. All right, I'm going to spend a few minutes just to talk to you a little bit about what is happening currently in the financial space as it relates to the topic of consideration today and discussion. I'm also going to touch a little bit on the limitations that currently exist as it relates to credit unions financing projects, and some of the ideas I think we could look into with the necessary legislative support and regulatory evolution that I think would make for a much more vibrant economic situation for small businesses and contractors. So let's get into it for 2 minutes. Right, so what is the role? Performance bond guarantees, credit facilities and loans, equity and consortium financing. One of the key issues that is facing the industry is not necessarily access to money, the availability rather, but the access to it. in the form of financing for contracts and small businesses. So the gap is an access gap. And there are some gaps. There are programs, products, and services that do exist. And I will go in a little bit on that a little bit later. But we face some gaps. And as I told Mr. John, we need to start these conversations and come up with the ideas to reform the financial services sector in Grenada to allow us to meet and fill in those gaps. So right now, you do have the ability to access working capital type loans as an individual with a business, as a contractor, with a bank in Grenada or a credit union. From my research, there is probably one commercial bank that have a sort of program related to guarantees and bonds in Grenada. Even with what exists now, the smaller contractors generally struggle to meet the threshold or the collateral requirement for accessing finance. And we have very limited market participation. We have participation generally on the end user side, meaning, for example, in the construction sector, most of the credit unions and banks, our participation is on the end user side. Whoever is taking the mortgage or the loan, that is who's interacting with the bank or the credit union, not necessarily the contractor who won the bid for the project and needing upfront financing. So we do have what you would refer to as working capital loans, normally in the form of personal loans to members. We do have situations where a contract awarded by, let's say, the government can be used as security or collateral to access financing if you need to purchase equipment and so forth. But the kicker here is most of these facilities still fall within the ambit of a member loan. And that is assessed within that space in terms of our risk-based lending to a member. Hopefully, as we discuss on the panel, I'll explain a little bit more as to why that is a bit limited. So from our perspective, government contracts and collateral receivables are already considered within our risk-based assessment. So we do use contracts as a means of collateral for loans. These facilities, however, are currently structured as loans to members. Contractors should build a relationship with their credit unions to access these financing options. What small contractors and small business owners must do? You must formalize your business, first of all, have your business registered, maintain financial records. And many small contractors and small business owners fail in this regard. And quite often, they believe this means publish financial statements and an accountant and so on. But a very simple way to maintain financial records is by simply designating a bank account or credit union account as your business account and ensuring that all of your money business passes through that account. If you were to do that for 5 years and then you approach your credit union to say, I want a loan to replenish my stock or to expand the business, the credit union already have financial records of your business activity. So it's not hard to keep those records. This one is very important, separate business and personal financing. And to build a good track record. So if you do access a facility, ensure that you pay your loan on time and in full, and don't dodge the institution when things go bad. I think it's a misconception persons have generally. Something is going on and you can't pay the loan. The credit union or the bank wants to hear from you before you're flagged by the collections team. And quite often people underestimate how willing the credit unions and the banks are in terms of understanding your circumstance. You just need to come forward. If the bank or the credit union be chasing you for 5 months and we finally caught up with you, the story loses its essence, right? It's important to understand cash flow and working capital needs so that you can plan for financing options. This is important. What needs to change in the market at the moment? There must be regulatory reform. Must. When we have these discussions here, I expect you as citizens now to go back to your credit union AGM. If you get a chance to sit in at a town hall with a government minister and speak about the need for regulatory reform. Product innovation and regulatory evolution, right? So contract linked credit financing, lines of credit, financing for startups. The kicker is that last box on the right side. ECL and NPL treatments should recognize the unique characteristics of these products. And this is where the challenge lies for credit union and banks. So a pure business loan should really not be structured as a regular member commercial type lending. And for us to structure these products correctly, we need to reform how we deal with expected credit loss calculations and non-performing loan interpretations for these types of products. Right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Randy. And again, we're going to dive further into that conversation as we proceed. Randy mentioned financing, and going hand in hand with that financing, of course, is us talking insurance. So Michelle Chase, head of Gallagher Grenada, she's going to share a bit with us as to why this is important. Ms. Chase.
Morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here representing Gallagher Insurance Brokers. And for those of you who are not familiar with our company, we are a global insurance brokerage, risk management, and consulting firm. As Mr. John would have mentioned, we're celebrating 20 years in Grenada, but we are a global firm that is just about to enter our 100 years in the industry. So insurance is as old as time, as they would say. Insurance basically is a risk transfer mechanism. And at Gallagher, we seek to tailor solutions to protect what matters most, whether it be on the personal lines of business, your own home, your vehicle, and on the commercial side. And this is where I'm going to touch specifically on today, is insurance for contracts and contract-related works. As I mentioned, it is a risk transfer mechanism. So in doing business, there are risks associated with doing business. And as contractors, what you're in essence doing is transferring the risk from yourselves to an insurance company, yes, for a fraction of the cost. So let's say you're entering into a contract to pockets at Gallagher, both locally and overseas, right? So in working on your behalf, we become your partner. And we seek to ensure that the risk you're looking to protect is protected adequately. Okay? I just want to talk a little bit of the role of insurance in the construction sector. It provides not only a financial risk protection, in that it covers losses associated with your business. There is project continuity support. The financing of the insurance companies in the event of a loss allows you to continue with that project, and so the project does not come to an unfortunate end. It builds stakeholder confidence that enhances trust in lenders, investors, lenders like the credit union, investors, regulators, facilitating project approval and financing agreements, which is what this whole symposium is about over the next 2 days. And it also looks into risk management and safety in assessing risks, safety protocols, and encouraging better planning and safer construction practices. I want to touch a little bit on the insurances that accompany a project. As you can see from our slide, we have quite a few of there, but I'm going to start with the usual and customary ones that you find a lot of contractors would usually approach us for. That will be the contractor's all risk insurance, which is covering the physical loss or damage to the construction works, the materials, and it includes a third-party liability for any negligent acts that results in damage on the construction site, which is different from number one on the board, which is a builder's risk insurance. So the builder's risk insurance is similar, but it's normally taken out by the person who is asking for the construction to be done. But for the contractors all risk, it's normally taken out or affected by the contractors themselves. And it includes also in the coverage the employer. So a contractor's all risk will cover you, the contractor, as well as the employer who is employing you to do the works. There is the public liability policy, resulting for if there's any resulting damage for personal accident or property damage on the site, then you have coverage under the public liability policy. And the employer's liability policy, this same thing, personal injury and property damage, but this is for the employees that the contractors have working on the different sites. There is a professional indemnity insurance as well. So if you have, as a contractor, you're involved in the design and build, this type of policy will provide coverage for financial losses, for design errors, omissions, professional negligence. All right. So in essence, these are the core insurance products that are available to provide protection for you. I will also want to touch a little bit on surety bonds. We heard a little bit about bonds in the credit union and banking sector. Bonds are also available in the insurance sector as well. And I just want to share with you, in my experience in dealing with contractors, bonds are, though they're not necessarily considered when you are looking to bid for a project, but it's very important because it provides, support. Sometimes when you're bidding for a project, one of the requirements may be a bid bond. So you asked for a bid bond to accompany your tender. There is also an advance bond, right? And this bond is important because as small contractors, and we've heard today about some of the challenges in not having access to immediate cash to start the project, an advance bond provides that protection for the employer who is giving you an advance sum to start the project, to mobilize the project. And so that advance bond protects their interest, or that their financial interest, usually about 10% of the project, that is advanced to the contractors. We have the performance guarantee or the performance bond, right, which basically covers the period of the construction. And it also ensures that, well, there's a lot of factors that are impacting now the successful completion of a project, but basically it ensures that the projects are completed on time, within scope, and to the standard requirements. And finally, there is the retention bond. In any project, the employer will withhold a sum, usually 5% of the contract price, to ensure that the works are completed, there are no defects on the project, and it's successfully completed. And that 10% is usually released after the handover of the project and everything is okay with the project. So, but there is a bond for that, that we can, you as a contractor, you can ask for that retention bond, and you will hand that bond over to the employer, who will release your funds prior to in most instances, prior before all of the works are wrapped up. Well, not the works, but the successful handover. I want to say to you, the audience today, to make your insurance your friend, right? We spoke today about making Mr. Terrence our friend today. Make insurance your friend. You need to partner with your insurers. Find someone who you trust, an insurance advisor, or find an insurance company that you work with, right? Far too often, what I have observed in my years of experience is that contractors run to bid for projects without fully assessing the insurance cost that is associated with it. Now, insurance costs are a pass-through costs to your employer. It doesn't come from your pocket unless you do not evaluate the cost of the insurance effectively. So by partnering with an insurer, partnering with a broker, building a relationship with your insurer, what that allows you to do is to access information regarding insurance premiums that are associated with the different products that you will need to include in your tender process. Because far too often what happens is that you underbid, you underquote insurance premiums, and then you come and when you finally get the true cost, when you win this contract and you come now to do the insurance, right, you're surprised that the cost of the product, whether it be the insurance or whether it be the bond, all right? So by having that partnership, it allows you to accurately reflect what the insurance costs. Again, a pass-through cost to the employer. If you do not accurately reflect that insurance cost, then where will it come from? Your own pocket cutting into your profits. All right, so I encourage you today, and this is what I want you to leave with you today, is that form your relationships with your insurance company so that, or your broker, we are available to give you advice, right? Your key product is construction, and our expertise is insurance. And we are here to guide you, to provide you with the expert advice, and to support you as you build yourself. Thank you.
Excellent and well said. Our final conversation, insurance talks of what could go wrong, the risk, and perhaps the best person to tell us a little bit about what could go wrong on a project or how best to approach that is Mr. Noel. Mr. Noel, your opening salvo. Folks, as Mr. Noel makes his way to the podium, the mic is at the middle of the aisle. I'm not going to hold you too long. As we converse, if the question comes to mind based on some of the things you heard this morning, or as the conversation progresses, feel free to just jump onto into the aisle and ask the question. We'll accommodate as we go along. Mr. Noel.
Thank you very, very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, for those who know me, they know I don't speak a lot. I am very, very quiet. So if you can't hear me, please just indicate, because I'm a very shy person, very quiet, very reserved. So while I was sitting there, I looked up and I paid attention to the structure, and I saw a small flaw in the finishes. All right. And I remember a question someone had asked once. Do you all like the design here? You all, I mean, it's okay. It's okay to say it's okay. Do you all like the lighting, the nice little work that they did? It's okay to say okay. While you all were sitting there, did you all think about whether the structure is safe or not? And that is what we do as engineers. Our job is to make sure that the structure is safe. And as a civil engineer, we have to take several things into consideration. I'm not going to go through them now, but I'm just letting you know that that is part of what we do as engineers. Now, every single project that is done because there is a problem that needs to be resolved. And in resolving that problem, I'm going to speak from the context of the government here. They have to ensure that the person that is going to solve that problem for them is adequately equipped to solve that problem. And not someone that is going to come and halfway through the project realize that they are not sufficiently equipped to solve this problem. And rather than being 10 steps ahead, you are now 4 steps behind. That's why it is important to understand when you are submitting a bid, you are making an offer to conduct or to enter into a contract. So if you just give me a little chance to just put down one hat and pick up another for a little bit. When we talk about contracts, what do you all know about contracts? Offer, acceptance, consideration. There's one more very, very important one, actually 3 more, but one would suffice. Intention to create legal relations, capacity, and then the legality of the contract, but we're not going to go into all of those. Many of the contracts that we see coming from the private sector and being an engineer, most of the contractors do not take into consideration the legal relation that they're going to form. In that, they do not pay attention to, well, if I'm going to form this legal relation, I'm making an offer to you, then that offer I make must fall in line with the manner in which you requested that offer to be made. They look at it as a regular document, sign in some information, fill out the bill of quantities, and that's okay. It is not okay. The only thing that is the same throughout all contracts or all bids is that they are contracts. They are all different. The requests that are being made on the bidders, they differ in each and every single contract, from location of the works to be done, to eligibility, to the simplest thing, the countries that you are allowed to import or seek services from, they all differ. And because most of us, I'm a part of it, we do not take that into consideration, the offer that we submit, sometimes all the work that is done to make this offer does not even pass the first criteria, which is it eligible to be considered? And that's simply because we do not take the time to understand that we are saying that we are willing to form legal relations, and we are submitting our offer to you for you to accept. And because of that, most of the bids, they fall on the sideway. Now, I do not want to take up much more time. There's a lot more to unpack there, but this is just a starter from me to you on this matter. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Noel. And so it's time for us to get into the meat of the conversation. And I'm going to start with our central procurement unit. And the question I want to pose to Mr. Lucas, because I suspect you've sat over and presided over hundreds of bids and evaluated a number of these over time. What's some of the common mistakes that you see from contractors and folks bidding for projects?
Good afternoon, everyone. From a procurement standpoint, most of the common mistakes we see has to do with incomplete bids. So contractors are not taking the time to do a proper bid submission. There are cases where simple omissions can eliminate you from going forward with the process. So for example, failure to sign a security declaration, sorry, for example, failure to present your financial statements, failure to submit valuable details on your key exports. These are some of the areas that we find that we have challenges when it comes to especially our local contractors. We do procurement with both local and with international donors, and there are strict adherence to some of these tender documents. So for example, the World Bank, they are strict adherence to some of the processes. And we find a lot of the times that the bidders sometimes just rush through those documents and not pay particular attention to every detail. And in those cases, those details matter. Even from a local standpoint, find the same thing, because we are responsible to ensure that procurement is done in accordance with our regulations. And a lot of the times we find when bidders submit their bids, a lot of essential aspect of it missing. And that is some of the challenges that we are facing.
Excellent. So I heard failure to consult with key experts, and we have a few key experts in the room. And so I don't know, divine intervention, but I feel like Mr. Noel has something to add to that bit of the conversation. He mentioned a few while he was here, and immediately after that, Randy, I'd like you to jump in, because I want us to also talk solution. If that's one of the problems, how can the banking and credit union institutions assist with the solving that financing side? Mr. Noel.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I hope I do this justice. As I said in my little soliloquy, the bids are never the same. The similarities that you're intending to enter into contractual arrangements. Now, most times what happens, we have a bid that goes up, it's there, it's advertised. The contractors, they take it, they fill out the bill of quantities, but they do not take into consideration the location. They do not take the time to go and visit the site to determine, well, are there any dry rivers? Are there any impediments? For example, if I am doing something in Sates, all right, and I'm talking about Sates town, and it is a metallic structure, I have to think about how am I going to get my metallic structure to Sates, right? And there you need to engage the people who transport the material, right? You need to engage your insurance, because the transportation of the material to Sates is also a risk. You would also need to engage your engineers to determine, well, this material that we are going to use, is it suitable for the area? Because Grenada, all of Grenada is considered coastal. You're going to have sailing conditions. How long should it be there exposed? What treatment should it receive so that it serves their life? So these things are not taken into consideration. And as a result, when it's time to actually execute and the costs start to increase, they realize that in the bill of quantities that they simply went to a QS, have them prepare it and submit it. They did not take all of these risk factors into consideration. They did not consult the necessary experts so that they can know how to plan for these risks, how to mitigate these risks. And as a result now, they reach a situation where instead of actually completing the project, where they make profit, because I don't think anybody goes into a project without the thought of making profit. They complete or they do not complete the project, they do not make any profit, they owe the bank, the employer calls in their bond, no contractor wants an employer to call in their bond, so in all, they lose. And that company, which was on an upward trajectory, now disappears.
All right.
Yeah.
By all means, though.
There are two insights to this. Oftentimes, okay, so first and foremost, I'm in agreement with Dwayne, but from a legal standpoint, basically, majority of the time, all the risk is on the contractors. But to segue, I think it's about time we should have what we call a vendors registry, or you have a contractor registry. So you have classes of contractors. So for example, say with one of the GQ project, if it's 20 million EC dollars, you know from the procurement standpoint that I have 5 contractors who are equipped enough to bid on this project. So here in a sense, it will limit some of the issues that you are having. Because you have say you have contractor grades class 1, 2, 3, and 4. You may send out a bid for a class 1 and a class 2 contractor. So with that particular contractor, in terms of leaving out key personnel, he has or she has his construction team already. Be it civil engineer, be it procurement officer, be it quantity surveyor, draftsperson, architect. You know you already have that. So I think is a initiative or something that we here in Grenada should start is classifying your vendors. It doesn't necessarily mean in the construction aspect of it, because I also served on the public procurement board previously, and there are times you will see bids coming in from something with the health sector, and you have to be mindful because, for example, when I see the bids coming in, I personally used to go and do research. So you see equipment and stuff coming in to be purchased, but something you have to be mindful of is who the agent in this region is, because we can procure something from Europe, but the agent for that particular equipment is in Central America. If we have a problem, they will tell you have to deal with Central America because that is your region. So in terms of assessing bids and stuff like that, the procurement unit can say, well, okay, a plan or framework in the next 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, we would like to have a registry. And we're having that registry, we have our vendors. And once our vendors meet these criteria, you send out a bid. So certain things can alleviate some of the issues that we are having.
A registry. I'm curious as to how our contractors in the room feel about that, but the panel is here. If you have a question, you'll ask us. Yeah. All right, so let's go. Our first question is up. Randy will weigh in after that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Arlene Tilliston. In relation to what you just said, now at the beginning of the symposium, Minister Lennox Andrews was encouraging persons to collaborate in order to win bids. So if a program like that where you're now classifying persons because this company has everything and this other company doesn't, you're now segregating persons to only win big projects whereby those who may not be a complete firm would be left out. So one of the solutions, it's like with any business, persons need to be taught, okay, you're a contractor, these are the things that you need to have necessary as, sorry, I forgot his name, but Mr. Nixer. When you're approaching the financial institutions, one of the things necessary, you need to have a business registration, you need to be registered with the tax office, you need to be registered with NIS, you need to have records. Now, you were saying having a bank account, yes, it shows your business, but we're in an age where persons can be taught to use a spreadsheet. They can create a spreadsheet to have all their financial information. Similarly, with the requirements for getting a project, that is why the reason for the symposium, things that you might be missing out. If persons are taught, you don't have it, but consult with this person, then they are now being opened up to becoming eligible to be able to win a project.
All right.
Just to answer your question regarding about when I said about classes, in some bids as well, there are times you ask for joint ventures. So if a contractor does not meet the criteria, he can team up because you can correct me. I know that there are bids that are becoming to tender, and then there's a section in it that asks for joint ventures. So that's another avenue for if you're not meeting the criteria, you can team up with other personnels.
All right. So we have the classification system, but we still leave room for joint ventures. Proposal is on the table. We'll see how it goes. We have another question from the audience. I want to take that before we continue.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. With the presenter, I agree with what you were saying about creating the platform for the different, well, what do you want to say, suppliers or contractors? Because that was my question I was going to ask. Why the procurement division does not create a platform? Because in the ministry, we all are kind of liable in terms of vetting our own contractors. And the same problem that you pose, these are the challenges that we face daily, because most of the time we select our contractors based on who we know. So I believe by creating that platform, and even you kind of categorize it, because you will have contract that is small, some that is larger. So at least you in the ministry, if you want a painter, you can able to go into that platform and pool the persons that you need. As usual, you're going to have more than one, so they're still going to be debating, they setting the necessary costing and everything that you could still evaluate. So I think this will eliminate a lot of the challenges that we face in government in terms of not executing our project or contractor falter on the job, etc. And one of the presenter would have talked about small businesses. He would have used example like partnership, joint venture, business angel, etc. I think that also will serve as a great purpose for other contractors to find partners. So whether it's locally or regionally, in terms of growing and partnership, at least you can go in that platform so you know someone that is in your field so you can collaborate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the contribution. And I think that's going to be noted by the Central Procurement Unit. I can't make any promises for them just yet, but it definitely will be noted. Another question.
Okay, so I have another. So while I agree with the lady who spoke, I also have some suggestions to give to the government side, which is that in the past, what has happened is that this ministry have a platform where they're asking people to register all, like for example, they say all consultants register here, and then when this person retires or goes somewhere else. You hearing me? Yes. Yeah. When the person retires or goes somewhere, they transfer to somewhere else, then that is debunked, you understand? And then they have another ministry or section of government. So maybe what is supposed to be done is that we have one central place, you understand, rather than everybody doing their own little thing that just falls by the way when the next person, somebody goes away or is transferred somewhere else.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the suggestion. And do you have a question? Yes. Questions are coming in fast and furious. Keep them coming. This is what we want and need.
Afternoon, everyone. I do not have a question, just a statement to just refer to some questions that were asked. I'm Alexis Smith, Procurement Officer with the Central Procurement Unit. So with regards to the access to opportunities and having those registered, once you register on the e-procurement intent, the information is there. The whole of government has access to that. And if the whole of government uses that portal to tender, it means that the whole of government would have access to those contractors that would have been registered. So I think that would help the process along. The symposium is also geared to training. We'll be training public officers tomorrow to procure works, goods, and consultancies. So that would be another avenue in regards to sending out tenders and also assessing those tenders to get the best bids. We are also doing training and coaching tomorrow as well for contractors with the bidding documents, so contractors can be more competitive. The networking session today that is happening is also geared at building those partnerships and relationships. So small contractors can build those relationships today with other larger contractors and vice versa with service providers like the hardware stores, etc. So this is the avenue, take full advantage of it. So that answers some of the questions that were asked.
Thank you very much. That's Ms. Smith from the procurement unit. So as we continue the conversation, Ms. Trace, I want to bring you back in. We have just about 10 or so minutes before we have to break for lunch. We can continue the conversations over lunch and in our networking session this evening. But Ms. Trace, you mentioned earlier that you want folks to develop a partnership and a relationship with your insurance brokers. How does one move from that kind of transactional, I purchase, you give me, to actually developing a partnership and a bond?
I would say consistency. First of all, approach the broker, approach an insurance company. Persons in the room would already have maybe a house insurance or maybe a vehicle insurance with an insurer. If not, there's a broker. As a broker, my card is outside. Feel free to take advantage of it on the board. But reach out and start to have those conversations, right? Become a partner with us. Now, as a broker, we do not charge you any additional costs, just to say that. So for you to access information from us, it's totally free of cost. All right, so come in. We are at the top of Market Hill in Renwick and Payne building. Come in, have that conversation for us. Or if you don't want to come in, give us a call and ask us any questions that you'd like to ask. If you have a project that is coming up that you'll be tendering for, you will need to give us the information, of course, that you're looking to tender for. Basic information would be, obviously, at the inception stage, you're looking to determine what cost you can submit for your bid. So you will give us what figures you're looking at. At that point in time, of course, it will not be concrete, together with details of the project, who the employer is, and certain details. And what we will do is send it out to market for you. To the different insurance companies that offer that kind of insurances. And also, when we get that information back to you, you can use that information, and that is the start of the process, right? Because you're at the bidding stage. There's no concrete relationship at that point in time. It becomes concrete when you win that tender. You're successful and you win that tender, and you come back to us and you say, hey, could you please place the insurance for us with the winning insurer, of course, because you're tendering to them for them to tender on. You're submitting your information to them for them to tender for your insurance. That's how it works. All right, so that's another tender process as well. So the successful insurer, you can, or an insurer that you have a relationship with, not necessarily the cheapest person or the cheapest insurer, and then you move ahead with finalizing the insurances, because you will need those documents to submit before to whoever the employer is, to submit before the project begins, to say, hey, these are insurances that have been incepted. I didn't speak a little bit about the bond. I know in the for the credit unions and the bank, they usually ask for collateral, which can be up to and equal to the value of the bonds. In the insurance industry, there are some companies that, based on your credit worthiness or based on their assessment of you, may not ask for any deposit, or they may not ask for any collateral, and so you're able to access your bond for the bond fee, of course. There are some companies, of course, that ask for collateral, not entirely for the entire value of the bond. So come in and ask the questions, and we're there to help you.
Excellent. I see another question from the audience.
Good afternoon, everyone. Amita Harris, Central Procurement Unit. Ms. Chase, you answered most of my questions while I was standing here, but my question is related to performance bond as well. Specifically that in works contracts, and we reach the contract signing stage, we would typically give the contractor 28 days to submit their performance bond. I agree that the contractor should come to you initially when they plan to even submit a bid, so that you can have the conversation on the requirements. However, that is not the case in, I would say, 90% of our tenders. And when we reach this contract signing stage and we ask them to submit the performance bond, it takes them 3 months. Thus, we as a client have all rights to terminate that contract or to not move further. So my question to you is, how soon, if a contractor comes with their signed contract and says, well, I signed this contract with the government today, and I need this bond in 28 days, in 25 days, what should they present to you? So, or do you have resources where you can share this information to the public, or what resources do you have to give them information on what they need to bring in? The timeline in issuing the bond. Usually we have templates that we would submit in the contracts, but a lot of times the banking institution and insurances say they don't understand the templates and they probably have their own. So if you can just walk us through any experience if you've had with someone coming the day of and asking you for a performance bond to be submitted within short order.
Right. So bonds are not an insurance product. It is a financial instrument, right? It's a guarantee. Now there are two types of bonds. They are the demand bond, which insurance companies are hesitant to offer. And then there is the remedial bonds, right? So for the demand bond, if it is called, then the insurance company now has to fork over this money and pay out to the employer. With the remedial bond, it sets out the actions that the insurance company will have in remediating this defect. So it may be that they can now work with the contractor to fix the defects or to get them to perform the way the contract is specified, or they can now take on the responsibility of engaging an additional contractor, a separate contractor, to finish those works, right? Or they can choose at that point in time to give the funds over to the employer to get the works completed. So obviously, the insurers in the local market would much prefer to do the remedial bonds because obviously you're not handing over the money immediately. Now, at the time of signing of the contract, and this is why I think education is very important for contractors. Some of the companies that offer the bonds, they're not here because it's a financial document, it's a legal document again, right? The signing has to be done by company secretaries or persons in senior authority in the insurance companies, and therefore it's not local. As you know, the OECS now is one space. We operate as one space. Our banking sector is one space. And so we have local insurance companies operating here with the head office, and their signing authorities are external to Grenada. And those bonds will come from external to Grenada, right? Another component of the bond as well is a counter indemnity, which must be signed by the contractor. So the insurance company will ask you to basically sign this document, have it legally notarized, that in the event that the bond is called, the contractor themselves are actually responsible for paying the sum. But what it is that the insurance company is stepping in and either paying out the bond or undertaking the remedial works on behalf of the contractor, but the contractor is still responsible for paying that money back or the bond back, all right? Same thing in the banking sector. They're holding the value of that bond for you. So if that bond is called, they're holding your monies, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. They're holding your monies. So if the bond is called, it's your monies that they're paying out to the employer, right? So at the end of the day, it's the contractors who are losing, and you need to take this information that you're gathering here at the symposium very seriously, right? Because as I would have mentioned at the inception, and it's being said, we're here to make money, we're here to make a profit, we're here to grow as contractors, we're here to help you grow. The panelists here, we're here to help you grow, here to help you succeed, climb up the Maslow's theory of, hierarchy and move from, just being a normal, you also would want to grow. So take your insurances, take your bonds seriously. That is your business, and have those conversations with your broker, have those conversations with your insurance company.
Excellent. Go ahead. And I saw a question, so if you can come forward. We are very close to wrapping up. So
okay, I just like to add one little caveat. Now, when you receive that document, it is important that you read that document because the bond, they're going to specify the type of bond that would be allowed under this specific terms and condition of that contract.
Right.
So you need to read that and ensure that you are able to get that bond and where and at what cost, if there are any costs attached. Because that cost now, if there are any attached, could be significant because of the risk that are associated with getting into business with you.
Right.
So it is important that the contractors, they read that document, ensure that they can get the bond as per the verbiage of the document, because again, you are tendering an offer. They have told you how they want the offer to be tendered to them. And if you are deviating, then they may not be willing to enter into any sort of business with you because you have already indicated that you are not willing to work in accordance with their conditions.
Excellent. Well said, sir. We'll take another question from the audience.
Hi, good morning. My name is Mackenzie. A wealth of information today from the panelists and a diverse group as well. But a key question that I have, since I'm new to the procurement space and I'm learning a lot and I'm hearing a lot and I have a lot of homework to do as well. But one of the questions I want to ask in regards to this, IT infrastructure and technology, what are some of the more in-demand procurement technologies or categories of technology that may be in demand for the next 6 to 12 months that may be in demand? Categories being such as digital transformation, AI, cloud, services, or even cybersecurity.
Okay, so we actually do have a presentation later this evening, post-lunch, that goes into some of the opportunities within the procurement space. For those of you who are consultants in the room or project managers in the room, Ms. Blesdell from the procurement unit is going to go through a few of these later this evening. So I hope you'll be with us after lunch.
Definitely.
Right? But if anybody from the panel wants to add anything to that, feel free.
Just one little piece. I think a key focal point right now is cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Are you talking firewalls, the ability to layer your network and so forth?
Okay. Yeah, because the question really arises from when I heard the possibility of even just making some of the processes smoother in terms of like a vendor registration and different classes. So I'm just thinking from your guys' point of view, what are some of the things that you think that, IT infrastructure could really help smoothen out a lot of this process in regards to biddings and everything else in between? Yeah.
In response to that, as stated before, we have the Intent Network software that we use to advertise our procurement activities. And that is why we encourage our vendors to be part of that. And that is where you would see our procurement opportunities in different areas. So for example, the field that you just spoke about, you would see some of those activities there. Additionally, as Mr. John indicated, this afternoon there would be a presentation as to some of the opportunities that we have upcoming. So that will also help you.
All right, excellent. Folks, I do want to continue the conversation. However, we are out of time. And so I want to invite all of us to continue these and the other needed conversations over the course of our networking opportunities. We have break, we have lunch, we have an actual dedicated networking session later this evening. So I want to invite you all to continue the conversation later this evening. I want to say thank you very much to our panel. For one agreeing to be here and for sharing the wealth of knowledge that you have. I know we only scratched a tip of the iceberg and there's way more that you have on offer. So I want to say thank you. Can we put our hands together for all of our panelists? And at this point, I'm going to invite our moderator to come back onto the stage. We'll also have a rep from the procurement unit, because after you've given so much to us, we can't let you go empty-handed.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. John. And thank you so much for being a good audience. I heard some very challenging questions. I was wondering, do we have lawyers inside? Because the questions were very strong. It was good to have you all here for this panel discussion. It was a very informative session. And now we want to just give a little token of our appreciation from here, from us at the Ministry of Finance, to our panelists. We will ask Mr. Victor. Yeah, come and help us give out some of these packages. So thank you, Ms. Chase. And she was the very last panelist that we called, and she was like, yeah, I want to do this. Thank you so much, Ms. Chase. So we'll do Brother Earl. Thank you so much, Earl. And we'll do Mr. Frank. Thank you so much for taking a very busy schedule. And Dwayne, Dwayne, thank you so much. Last but short not least, Mr. Lucas. Want to break for lunch at this time? Yes, lunch is provided at Tradewinds Hotel, Tradewinds Restaurant within the hotel. So when you go out this door, we'll ask 2 officers from the Central Procurement Unit to just lead the way, and we take you over to the restaurant. For those of you who know, you can lead the way as well. So have an enjoyable meal, and we gather back here at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock, guys, 2 o'clock for the afternoon session. Thank you, guys. And don't leave. We have an afternoon session, so we want you back here at 2 o'clock. Grab something to eat, refresh yourself, bathroom, and be back here with us.